ambulance. And where we really need them is farmers. I'm telling you, you guys will drive yourselves to the hospital. You got to quit doing that.
And they'll take a shower before they get in the pickup truck.
They'll take a shower. They'll come in bleeding.
Yeah, because you can't drive the work truck to town.
Got to rinse the hog manure off.
They were literally carrying their eyeball hanging out.
Yeah, you guys are tough.
And what happened? Well, I was on the farm, and my husband was backing the trailer up in the cow yard, and he ran me over, and my eye popped out. I said, well, how long? Well, I had to go in the house first and take a shower. And
Oh
You
my
say
gosh.
that. No,
Yeah.
my patient did
Yeah,
the too.
seriously,
I
they
took
do.
a guy to Regions. He was on his riding lawnmower, ran over his propane line, blew up, started on fire, sprinted into his house, jumped in the shower, got in his car, and drove himself to Brookings County with third-degree burns.
Wow.
I was like, you drove yourself? Yeah. I was like, all right, well, I'm going to tell everybody who calls with like toe pain
With
from
toe pain,
now
that's
on.
right.
I can see the shower to cool off or try to get the heat out, but
Yeah.
the driving.
Yeah, still drove
but
himself.
yeah.
And he was in Arlington. So it's not a
That's not
big drive
That's
either.
not a short drive, right?
But
Yeah,
again,
nobody wants stinky butt when you get to the hospital. They're just embarrassed.
Right?
you know, you'd wear clear underwear, you know, and all that, or at least wear underwear.
We don't care.
But
Honestly,
We
it
don't
doesn't
care
matter
if
if
you
you
put
wear
underwear.
underwear in EMS because it's
know, but
coming
I-
off.
It's coming off anyway.
With
right?
scissors, probably.
yeah,
Yes.
We don't pay any attention. You know.
Your thoughts and your input, it's just so nice to learn and be pushed where like in the call I can only do so much, but then coming back to you guys and you're being like, well, next time think of this or think of that. And sometimes I'm like, darn. And then other times I'm like, that's a really good idea. I just don't want to tell James he was right.
well, that goes back to our cultural
seeing a
change that we
theme.
talked about. That
We like to pick on James.
Hello, this is Jimbo from the YouTube channel Jimbo South Dakota, and this is the Hog House Chronicles podcast. And today we have something different. Those of you that have seen most or even any of the podcasts before, 95% of them have been military and veteran. And today we have Karen, Miranda, Randy, and James. And Karen and I have known each other for decades, and we talked about doing this about a year and a half ago. And I'll tell you honestly what prompted it was she was thanking me for my service and for going overseas and talking about military stuff. And I looked at her, I looked at her and I said, you know, with the job that you and your friends do, you see tons more than I ever did overseas. I was at a base where every once in a while there'd maybe be a mortar come over, whatever. We called it the golden BB. But these people see stuff almost every day, if not every day. So I was like, you know what? I think we need to do a podcast on first responders and medical people. So that's how this came about. So thanks for letting me do that intro here. And we are going to just go right down the line here. And you can each say whatever you want about where you grew up, family, what have you, the basic thing on how you got into the service that you're doing. And we'll go down to the end. And then we're just going to see what happens after that.
Okay. I'm Karen Kaskie. I'm a nurse. I've been a nurse for 41 years. Grew up in Canton, South Dakota on a farm just a few miles from here. And my husband and I farm now, and we're about 6 miles from where Jimbo lives. I started my career, I have to say that my 8th grade science teacher, Mr. Grimshrud, did a first aid class, and he did splinting, and it was like, if you're in the wilderness and break your leg, this is how you can like splint your leg so you can get out. And I thought that was the coolest thing. So ever since that moment, I wanted to be a nurse. I didn't know what kind of nurse. I actually worked in cardiology for close to 20 years. I worked in a coronary ICU, and then I worked for a cardiologist, and then got a wild hair and went to the ER. Had the privilege of being on the flight team for 10 years, and now I'm doing education. So James and I flew with each other several years, and now I'm teaching. So that's kind of my story, I guess.
All right. Miranda, how about you?
I'm Miranda Goodrich. I have been in healthcare as a whole for about 16 years now. The last 8, I've been in EMS, but I have done everything from CNA in nursing homes to patient care tech on med-surg, paramedic in the ER, and then dispatch for a VeraCare flight for all of the air medical flights, and most recently just in the streets as a paramedic and then educating at Sanford. And then I also volunteer for Crooks Fire Department. I don't like to have any free time, apparently, is what I do. And then at home, I have a spouse. She is a RN, so she's a nurse in the front lines too, so I think she understands. And then we have a 9-year-old son, so when we're not busy, we're still busy.
Right. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Randy Hardick. My history is a little longer than Miranda's, but I got into healthcare in 1983 as an orderly with Sioux Valley Hospital at the time, and we worked with the orthopedic doctors. We worked in ER. We did transport, a lot of those kind of things. And at that time, they had a tuition reimbursement program, so I took the EMT class, thinking that it would just help me out in the working in the emergency room with patients and understanding better what was coming in and all of that. Well, once you do the pre-hospital ride-out, we get what we kind of call the bug. We get bitten by the pre-hospital medicine bug,
Sure,
right? And we got that. So believe it or not, back then, working for the private ambulance service in Sioux Falls actually paid an EMT better than I was making at the hospital.
Oh, wow.
And it was 10 shifts a month, and you could work overtime. I actually had my first degree was in landscape design, so I could kind of do both things, which was kind of nice. After carrying the paramedic stuff for a couple of years, I went to paramedic school, and believe it or not, the gentleman sitting next to me, he and I were actually classmates in paramedic school, which just seems like yesterday.
Just like yesterday.
I believe. That was in 1988. I became a paramedic, worked for Sioux Falls Ambulance at the time. We were street medics, so we, again, ran 911 calls. We were then, we worked for both hospitals on the flight teams. As Karen said, she was with Sanford. I was with Avera, but I flew fixed wing for both hospitals on the helicopter to Avera. And in 94-ish, 95, I started teaching at McKinnon at the time with their EMS program. And did that up to 2004. I went to California because the weather, I guess, is better than South Dakota, believe it or not. And was there for 21 and a half years. And I was the department chair for the EMS programs at a college down there. And I just retired in December. Sanford talked me into teaching again with the EMS department and these folks to my right and left. And they talked me into doing it full time after I retired. So I'm not sure I'm the sanest guy you should have on this podcast.
Lots of giggling going on both sides, I could see.
Yeah. Well, and I was thinking about how you said, I started this in 1994. I was like, oh, great, we're finally to where I was born.
Yeah. Karen, I wish we could remember 1994.
Yeah.
Right. My name is James Smith. I grew up on a farm near White, South Dakota. And growing up on the farm, and then as you get a little older, you need a part-time job. Well, in that area, the nursing home was the only place you get a part-time job. So that's when I started in late 70s in the nursing home. Well, then I decided I wanted to take care of something other than just nursing home patients. So I applied at the Brookings Hospital. And the director of nursing at the time said, well, we don't hire orderlies per se, we hire EMTs, and they work as orderlies. And I said, well, I don't want to be an EMT. I have no interest in being an EMT. So she said, we really don't want to run that many calls. So just get your EMT, come back and apply here. And very much like Randy said, after you start running a few EMS calls, you kind of get the bug, you get bitten. And it's like, boy, this is a whole lot more fun than just taking care of patients in rooms, that kind of thing. So started in EMS as an EMT. And then moved on to a paramedic, worked in kind of all over the state for a little while. Started in Sioux Falls, Rapid City for a little, well, actually started in Rapid City, then Sioux Falls. And Aberdeen and Brookings, and flew with Karen, like she said, with flight team for a while, and at Sanford, and then now I'm in EMS education with Sanford.
White, South Dakota.
White, South Dakota.
Did you know any Hawkinsons?
Oh, yes.
A guy named Mike Hawkinson.
Yes, I know Mike.
He was in my shop
Is that right?
in the South Dakota Air Guard.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yep, and his son's flying for the Air Force now.
Is that right?
Yep, and we talked earlier, also some of the pilots were former fighter pilots. Tom Lean,
Yep.
Arlie Anderson,
Yep.
and then Tim Tiart, who was enlisted also in my
Yeah.
shop. So, yeah, the Hog House here, when we have parties out here, the thing I love is when people get together and you find these connections
Yes.
like that, right in a short amount of time. Look at the connections we found right there. And I didn't know about the White South
Oh,
Dakota
yeah.
thing. And
The Dubrook Dolphins.
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty wild.
Yeah.
'Cause a lot of
Pretty
dolphins.
wild.
in
A lot of
South
dolphins
Dakota.
in South Dakota. I hear that a lot, yes.
Now, if I ask a question, we don't need to go like just down the line, just go with the flow on it. And we haven't gotten to any stories of high stress or anything like that. So I'm going to ask you this one first is, with all the history that you have, how do you decompress from the types of days that you guys have to endure?
Brother.
I think, first off, there's a little difference in today's culture versus, when at least when Randy and Karen and I maybe started, it was more of that's just what the job was, and you went and you did the job, and there wasn't quite as much stress. I'm not saying it didn't have any effect on people, but I guess you do learn to separate yourself pretty quickly from, even though you care for each person as an individual, you don't really carry their stories home with you that much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for me, and James has been doing it as long as I have, so I can't say I'm the most experienced guy here and stuff. But I think back in the 80s, early 90s, and even up through 2000s, that it was the attitude, just like you kind of see in the service too, that big boys don't cry. You sucked it up, you buried it, you did whatever. I was privileged to be in the first cadre of the critical incident stress management and debriefing teams that we established here in South Dakota, which I think was probably one of the best things we did in EMS, is how to help people understand what they just went through. I live in Sioux Falls. I worked in Sioux Falls. It's the biggest city. And in my career, I've only hauled 2 people that I've known personally.
Oh, wow.
We look at South Dakota as the rural state that we are, it's very, very common for most of the departments to know their patients, right? And especially then when it does have a poor outcome, it takes a toll, right? And it can even be just from people that you know, or it can even be your squad members, right? I had that happen in Sioux Falls where we lost a couple people due to some accidents and stuff like that and stuff. But like James says, I think you find a way of doing it. I never took my job home.
No.
My family still doesn't know what I've seen in 40-some years. I just don't share that with them. We share it with each other. And it's a blessing for me to come back now and work with James and stuff, because we can talk things out and stuff with that. But that's
Remember
kinda
when.
how we did it.
Yeah.
But we all find our niches, right? My hobby is blues music, so
Oh.
I look stuff up. I listen to different artists. James talked me into starting to play the harmonica. We're not sure if that's going to go well or not.
It will.
It will go.
It
I
won't.
got a book and everything, so we'll see.
A book and everything.
But I think that's the cultural change, like he said, is we don't want, we invest a lot of time in our students. We invested a lot of time to do what we do. And to lose somebody because of stress or something like that takes a huge toll, especially on the rural towns, right? So I think we've gotten better about how do we keep the personnel in there and keep them healthy that way, and positive healthy, right? Not bad habits of doing things, of dealing with stress.
I think you're exactly right, is that the fact that in Sioux Falls, you had probably more experience than I did with people you know, but we're a lot less likely to know our patients. In the small towns, which are 80-some% of the ambulance services in the state, you're going to know who you're transporting to the hospital, their injuries, their traumas, their medical problems. You're going to know them.
That's what I was thinking too, with the life flight stuff in particular.
Yeah.
I think it's different too when you think of EMS versus hospital care. When I started in EMS, think it was a little bit harder, and a lot of people didn't talk about mental health. I think COVID is honestly where our culture change came from. Post-COVID, you've seen a lot of people across the board in healthcare just kind of wiped out as human beings mentally. There's points in the hospital, even in small town Sioux Falls, South Dakota, we're putting 16 people a week in body bags on a med-surg unit. Probably same thing with Karen if she was in hospital. So I think that we've seen a big shift across the board of people being like, we have to talk about this. With that time period, too, assaults increased. A lot more healthcare professionals across the board, EMS and in hospital, started getting assaulted. We had a lot more mental health crisis patients. So I think the combination of both of those, it was like, we have to talk about this now. If we want anybody to get help, if we want anybody to get better, be safe, we have to stop putting a Band-Aid on the issue, and we need to come together collectively and start dealing with it. And I think that's where a lot more counseling services became available to in-hospital and pre-hospital. I think now it's mandatory for 3 sessions for anybody working in it. We also created debriefing that's in hospital and pre-hospital too. And we involve everybody. If that was in the call, you come in, like in Brookings, if we bring in a patient and it's a really bad call, it's not just a debrief with us, it's PD on scene, if there's volunteer fire on scene, hospital. So everybody gets the input and the full story. And I think collectively, us trying to do all of that is doing the culture shift and making it better for the next generation to come. And I think that also comes from us educating and us being open and us talking about our issues. So they know they have a safe place where before you didn't have that and just nobody talked at all.
Yeah, I think I'll tag on to that. Nationally, we saw after COVID that in just about any healthcare level, people just quit. And it was maybe the stress, it was just the limitations, how everything had changed for all of our businesses. I saw that back in, whenever the LA riots were.
Yeah, yeah.
That changed our EMS business where EMS started wearing body armor, right? And those kind of things. One thing I can remember that just happened to me within like the last year is our students do different clinicals and internships and stuff. And my students were in the hospital emergency room at the time. And I go in and we go in and see how they're doing, talk with the nurses, do that kind of stuff. And I'm looking for my 2 students and they're not around. And I'm thinking, well, I'm going to fail them out of class because they're not where they're supposed to be. And I'm finally looking around and we have rapport with all of our clinical sites. And I asked the charge nurse, I said, where are my 2 students at? And they said, well, they left about 2 hours ago. And I went, what? Right. And finally I knew something was going on because there was a heavy police presence in the emergency room, which we all kind of know. Then something probably really tragic happened, and it ended up being a pediatric call with a bad outcome and stuff. And I was completely amazed that the departments now do, if there is an incident, they jump on it right away. They take that crew out of service. They pull them in. They start doing the debriefing process and all of that. And even though these 2 guys weren't on the call physically, they were in the ED where they brought the patient, and that department came and got them and took them to the debriefing. That's why they weren't there. And I was so proud of the EMS system for doing that instead of just doing that. And both of them had young children, which usually affects us a lot, you know. And they did a great job on that. I just couldn't believe that. And I called to follow up with them, and they were obviously in the debrief and stuff, but they both called me after and were really pleased that somebody was reaching out, because most of the time we just let you go home.
Yeah, I was part of the Sioux City unit as a part-timer when that airliner went down, 232 or whatever.
Yep.
And I was up in Canada when it happened, but I was impressed that all the psychological people that they brought in still contacted us, even though I was a part-time guy and I wasn't there, but they still knew that that could affect you some. So I was impressed with that. That's what you made me think of there.
James and I were both working for Sioux Falls Ambulance at the time.
That day, yeah.
We sent both helicopters. We sent, I think, 2 or 3 mobile trucks down. Now, not belittling that, but they did, if you're going to have a disaster, that was how to do it, because they had time to mobilize people prior to, but there still was a ton of stuff. And even though we planned for all of this, there's still things that come up, and they learned a ton from that. Again, like you said, on the psychological side of how they could do things different and better for all of the providers that showed up.
I think also decompressing after your shift. I don't think, well, at least for me, there's no time on your shift to decompress.
Right.
I don't know if anybody's ever heard of emotional whiplash, but that's what EMS has. And I think it's something new that they're coming about and talking about, but it's basically like we'll go from a cardiac arrest call, telling somebody, hey, your loved one has just died, trying to help them, cleaning up the body, to your tones drop, you're out the door, you're going on to your next call, whatever it is. So half the time you on duty, you do not have time to decompress. It's just like, okay, this is done, we have to move on. And I think that's where a lot of EMS then starts getting that complex PTSD, because you have sustained stress over a period of time that nobody then after duty decompresses, or they find poor ways to decompress. Like EMS, we have a high rate of suicide and substance abuse because of that.
Right.
Divorce, yeah.
Divorce
Yeah.
is a huge one too.
And I'll hit commonalities as they come. What you're saying there reminds me of when drones were coming into the Air Force, and the regular pilots would kind of crap on the pilots that were flying the drones and all that stuff. But then I also know some enlisted people that were the signal analysts people and stuff flying with them, but they're in a vault in a room. And they're fighting the war every day when our pilots are here flying around here practicing for war. Every day they're going through that. They're bombing things. They're seeing people getting killed. And then they walk out of there, can't talk, and they go to the kids' softball game.
Yeah.
That's what
It's
your
tough.
stories
Yes,
reminded
it just
me of there
you're.
too.
I don't know. I don't want to say like conditioned to just turn it off, but I feel like in some ways
kind of are.
We are, and
It's a challenge, I think.
it is a challenge in its own. I think we do a good job of like coming back to each other and talking and having that and doing it, but it is still difficult, because then obviously you don't want your bad call to bring up your bad call or your bad call or your bad flight. So I think then too it just gets a little bit hard knowing when to open up, but I think we're pushing ourselves to do that more.
Take just a quick break. I'm just
Yeah.
going to slide this that way just a
Okay.
hair, because most of your talk's this way.
All right.
So go ahead, and then we'll go to Karen.
Now, go ahead, Karen. I lost what
It's-
I was going to say.
Oh, sorry. I interrupted you.
okay. No, that's all right.
I can't believe you
James-
lost what you were going to
James-
say.
James
That
knows
hasn't
me. It'll come
happened
back
before,
at some
by the way.
point.
Never.
Yeah, I would say it has changed a lot in 40 years. When I was a new nurse in the mid-1980s, I worked in the coronary care unit, and at that time we didn't have the fancy stents that they have now. The crazy thing to think of is that we would allow them to have a heart attack overnight, and I worked straight nights, and we coded a lot of people, doing CPR and to try to keep them alive until the next morning when the doctor would take them to the cardiac cath lab if they were alive. And that was really hard because there was a lot of younger people that died of heart attacks too. And it was frustrating because we just didn't have anything. We could put them on, balloon pumps, fancy machines, put them on all the drips, and they either became a cardiac cripple or they didn't survive. And so that has changed significantly. Now they are racing from, if EMS picks them up and identifies a heart attack, right away, and they can send the EKG to the ER physician. The ER physician, that team can notify the cardiac cath lab, the cardiologist, and that staff is ready to go when the patient gets there. And it's just very well streamlined, and it saves a lot of lives. So, but yeah, 40 years ago, I guess I probably talked to my husband, but he's a farmer. He has no clue what.
And he's right here.
He's over there. I would kind of debrief off of him and friends. I had a lot of friends that we were experiencing the same thing, and we would, talk about things too. But I think now it's, like when we were on the flight team, we would sit in the flight room after a flight and debrief off each other, and it's like, well, what would you have done? Is there anything else I could have done? If it was a bad deal. And it's kind of a blur, the 10 years. Most of the patients I don't recall at all, but there's a few incidents that I do, and it's mostly the children, and that's
Children.
that sticks with you.
Yeah, and I
the
think
children are hard.
that's one of the changes when I started. SIDS was a really big thing yet
Yep.
back then. It was prior to the back to sleep. Well, when I started, I was single. So I would bring SIDS babies into the ER. And when we were done working on them, they generally did not have a good outcome. But, you know, the nurses would be crying. And I remember thinking, I don't know why what are you crying for? If you can't do this job, you shouldn't be in the profession. Well, then you get married and you have children, and that changes your whole perspective, whether it's SIDS babies or as your children grow, and now you go on a trauma patient where somebody is killed in a trauma, and it's we'll just say a 5-year-old boy, and you just happen to have a 5-year-old boy. You can really relate to both empathy for the parents, and I look back and I can think, I really understand where those nurses were coming from now.
I think it's a big shift
Yeah,
when you
it's a
have a
huge
family.
shift.
Because
Yep.
when I started in EMS, I didn't have my spouse and child, and I don't know. It seems crazy, but you can shut it off easier. And now there's a lot of shifts where I go home and I'm like, I'm so just thankful for you, which is ironic because you're talking about Terry and how he's a farmer and you can't talk to him. Where Reba's a nurse, but she has very like hard boundaries still, where she's like, I do not want to know. And it's just because even though she's a nurse, she's always taking care of adult patients or this type of patient. So she's like, I can't hear the bad peds calls, the bad pediatric traumas, abuse cases. And so it's like, even when you have somebody who can understand it, it's still in their own setting. So that's why it's easier to come with people who see everything.
So when you're in your training and you're coming into this career field, do they kind of train you to have some type of armor that you're wearing, or does each person do you try to put on armor personally until, you know, farther in, like you're saying, you have the more experiences and stuff, and then it softens you a little bit?
I think these two have insight in this too, and I've been the educator mode longer than both of these. And truthfully, in the curriculum, back even when James and I took it, hardly any time at all on any of this. Now there's a chapter kind of a thing with that.
Resilience.
Resilient, but it was more back again in the 80s, 90s, if you couldn't do this job, you need to get out. And now we don't want people to get out. We want to, you know, help them be able to, because it's kind of like anything else, what we can share and what we went through help someone else, right? It's kind
And
of
that's a compassion thing too, but
100%.
is that also kind of in the back of their minds of, are there fewer people applying for the jobs and stuff compared
Yes.
to back then also, you think?
Yes.
I think so, yes. And,
So it's
you
a
know,
two-edged sword, not, I mean,
100%.
I think
cutting
it's-
both the same
yeah.
way.
And
100%.
part of that has to do also with, I think, pay, because anymore you can go and get a job, for example, flipping burgers for what a lot of paramedics start at. So it's like, well, I can go into a field where I might see a lot of death and dying and suffering and get paid only as much as the same thing I can do flipping burgers
I
somewhere.
think you also have to remember too, it's not just seeing it, but sometimes in some of these calls we're blamed for it.
Yes.
I mean, well, you have to think like when you think of grieving, right, and death, one of the stages is anger. Well, when you're in that home and we can't save them, where does that anger initially get directed? Most times it's us. I'm sure everybody up here at some point has been like, you're not a doctor. How do you know? How do you know they're actually dead? You should have taken them somewhere to somebody who's more educated.
Don't stop.
Or
Yeah.
don't stop. You can't stop. Like, what are you doing? And you don't have anybody else to take that pressure off of you. And you have to absorb whatever they're saying and kind of walk away from it and still tell yourself, I did the best I could.
Especially the pediatrics.
The peds are really hard on that.
Parents really are, no, you don't stop. You will not stop.
Yeah, I shouldn't have sounded surprised on that, just knowing how people are.
No, I
Yeah.
think a lot of people are surprised because I think we think of EMS and we think, people are always so excited to see us because they literally call us to their home. They're in fact not always excited to see us.
I think, tagging on to back before, and then I'll bring that back up for a minute. But you look at what emergency response is, and the way I teach it is we're training people to have the privilege to go into someone's home at their absolute worst moment. Okay? And usually we do get called. This is rural South Dakota again, kind of. And I'll use my dad, who's 88. If you didn't lose a limb, you didn't go to the doctor, that kind of theory and stuff. And we get, like she said, we can go from, we were very helpful in a call, we made a difference in somebody's life, maybe the next call didn't go so well, or whatever. We have that just bombarded, like she said. But I think we look at it, and it's kind of like the armed services and stuff too. most of the people that join that are 18 to 22. Most of the people that get involved in EMS or even fire, it's usually a younger person's career, if that makes sense. Now,
Yes.
I've seen people now older that are getting into fire, EMS, law enforcement, those type of nursing,
And
all
we're
of that.
aging out.
But I'll say it's a maturity issue, but they're not old enough yet, right? And even for a while, at one point in South Dakota, you could be 16 and be an EMT. And again, I never believed in that, because I don't think at 16 you should see the stuff we've seen,
Yeah.
right? So I think that's one of the barriers we have too. And I do. We now try, no matter what lecture you're doing, we try to add in some humanistic part of this, that we're going in as a privilege, right? And when they call 911, they've lost control of their scene. So it's a tornado, right, for them. We're to be the eye of that tornado when we show up, whether it's bad or good or
Yeah.
whatever we're going to be asked to do, and we just do it. I have a degree in landscape. I would have never told you I would ever been in medicine. I was the
Yeah.
kid that I'd love to go to the doctor's office because they had cool toys and the best magazines, right? But when they called my name for my shot, I was out the front door faster than anybody could go.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I was just gone. Right?
Same.
Now I can do anything treatment-wise to you guys ago.
Better you
Suck
than
it
me.
up.
I do think you have a lot of good points there. I think when it comes to teaching, going back to that, I teach it in two ways. I teach about their mental health, but I teach about society's mental health. Overall, in general, I think it's something that we have not educated on, or we've educated very poorly on it. I think we always look for an excuse for the reason why people are, rather than just maybe it's just a really hard time for people, especially in today's age. Our suicide rates, especially in juveniles, is extremely high. So I always just try to educate on what to look for in others, and then also don't overlook that in yourself. I personally hate that our EMT book and our paramedic book uses resilience. I don't like that. When I think of the word resilience, it's like endure till the end. And you don't have to. Like, you have things that can help you now, counseling, peers, debriefing, all of those things. So it's not like just being resilient. And I hope eventually our books change that and push mental health harder, not only for ourselves, but as a treatment.
Yeah. And we happen to all work at Sanford, and they've really upped the game with employee assistance program. And prior to COVID, you could have, for every incident, you could contact the employee assistance and have 3 free counseling sessions. And now, the last few years, they've increased it to 6. So for every incident, that is available. And I think that, I don't know how often people are taking advantage of it. But yeah, I would have used it back when I was
Yeah, I think it's helpful.
inpatient
Yeah.
care. I definitely would have.
And not to take your show over, but I just want to ask
No,
Karen a question,
this
if you
is
don't
what-
mind.
we're just going with the
Is
flow.
Karen being a nurse, but again, she understands the pre-hospital phase because she was on the flight team. So that changes your focus and stuff.
I
But-
was never a street medic.
Yeah, but again, what I'm getting at is that the difference that I've seen, because I did work in the hospital, James worked in the hospital, you worked in the hospital, we've seen both sides. And our joke always is that if a nurse doesn't like her job wherever she's at, she has a lot of options of where to go. If Karen's tired of coronary critical care, I'm going to go work in med surg, or I'm going to
Or
go
peds, or-
peds
yeah.
or whatever, you know
Yep.
what I mean? In the emergency responder phase, we're kind of locked in per se, right? If you're a firefighter, then you're working as a firefighter. Now, there are different career pathways that you can take off of that, right?
It's
And
limited,
stuff,
but
or it's limited, but I think all of us here, you keep using the word compassion, we have that. I mean, that's just a thing that's in you. We can't teach that. And any student that I've ever had in the 40 plus years, whatever here is, I said, yeah, happy you're here because it is a career advancement. You get more money, you get more whatever. But I said, you're going to have a hard time passing my courses if you're not going to be the patient care responder first, if that makes sense. And that is, you can teach it, but we can't make it stick, if so to speak. And we really do see, kind of talking on the negative end, we really see a lot of great people come through our system, right? And a lot of them, we all have a problem or something at one point, but I think that's the big thing is that we've learned how to keep going.
Well, I
you know,
think
with that.
too, I think a big reason why we see such great people come through our program is we have passion. I don't think any of us are burnt out on EMS, and I think we really push that next generation to have that same amount of passion, because that's going to guide your compassion, really, is what I think. Once you lose passion for something, you're just not going to care. You, on the other hand, I think being in hospital, I think you have it a little bit harder than us. And I've talked to Reba about this too, because when we see somebody die, right, we're with that patient for how long? 40
20
minutes?
minutes, maybe 40.
Maybe, depending on how long we're running the code. When your patients die, you've been with them 3 days, 4 days. You might have been with them a whole month. Like that patient could have been on the unit 29, 60 some days. So you know that person, you know their family now. And I think for you then, letting them go could be harder than us, because we don't have that as close of a tie or a bond to any of them.
Yeah. And I hadn't thought of that before, but yeah, that's earlier in my career. Yeah, when I'm on the coronary care unit, I took care of patients that were there for weeks on end, and
Well,
got to know
And
their
that was the way it
family.
was. A coronary
Yeah.
patient at that time,
Yeah.
they were in CCU for a month. Mm-hmm. If they had an actual open heart surgery, they were there for a month. They didn't get out of bed for a week. They didn't do, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Now you have that procedure and you're gone the next day.
So yeah, same day procedure. Yeah. Well, Karen, and you also worked, I know you worked in a nursing home as well.
Yeah.
And in those cases, you might know the patient for 1 or 2 years.
Yeah.
So, and when they pass away, you have a real strong attachment to them.
And I have a high respect for EMS in their communities because of what Miranda said earlier, that you are being called to someone's home and you know them, you know their family, or you went to school with their kids, or they were a classmate of yours, you know. So I have a high respect for people who are doing EMS in their communities, and a lot of them are volunteers. But yeah, it's in the
And
in
that's
the
a
Canton
dying out
community.
business, or that's a dying out. People aren't volunteering anymore,
They're
and
not.
many of the small town ambulance services, they don't have ambulances anymore.
Well, and we're aging out too. We closed 3 EMS services this year, and the average age of our EMT in the state of South Dakota, I believe, is 57.
Oh, wow.
So we don't have a lot of the next generation coming in, or the drive to do it, and that's sad. I do teach my EMT students online. We have a very long lecture on it, actually, when we talk about MCIs and these situations. Because I said, for me, subjectively sitting in my chair lecturing
Probably
you.
say what that is.
So MCI is mass casualty incident, and that's where we have more patients than we have resources, essentially. So we have 6 patients, but 1 ambulance. Well, who gets treatment, right? Mm-hmm. Most people would say, well, it's the sickest, most injured person, right? It's not. It's the person with the best chance of survival. Well, now, us sitting here in the city, right? Easy choices. Well, you go out to a car accident, that's your best friend's kid. That's your uncle. That's your cousin. Mm-hmm. That's somebody you go to church with. And then now you feel the weight of that responsibility. Because then I tell my students, I say, so who gets to live? Mm-hmm. I was like, because you're going to have to look somebody you know in the eye and say, I just couldn't save them. And that's a weight you're going to carry the rest of your life. Because for us, a lot of my patients, I don't have to see their family again. But in that small town, those MCIs, those types of things, you're going to see them every day. And that is something that is really different to live with. And I always try to prep my EMT students for that, because I teach Nebraska, Minnesota, Iowa, and South Dakota. So they're a wide range. So I'm like, you got to be prepared for that moment, because unfortunately it happens.
And then you drive a wedge then between the first responder and that family member in the community.
Yep.
You can drive a wedge between families that now you're an enemy because you didn't save or
You
didn't
didn't.
try to.
Yep.
And you referred back to that incident with the plane crash in Sioux City. There was a number of patients that were actually still breathing that they had to pull a white sheet over so people wouldn't start, because their chances of survival were so slim. Mm-hmm. Difficult decisions to make.
Very difficult. And we have to, unfortunately, live with that. But, if you're not educated in it, you don't understand why we made that decision. And that's not something some people will ever understand, why we made that decision. And I think It's a little bit easier when we don't know them, and it's a heck of a lot harder when you do. It's a huge weight for them to carry, and I don't know how they do it. And when you think of our state too, the chances are most people are going to know somebody, because I don't know, we have 60 some counties, and half of those are frontier. So we're really more of a frontier state, which is even less than rural state. So your ambulances are sometimes covering 3,200 square miles. So when you take that much space, you're bound to know somebody. And also your chances of survival are dwindling, because you're so far out from the nearest hospital, and we're not essential.
Yeah, just look at this. We had like 4 or 5 people in common that we didn't know about until today.
Yeah.
We were talking about the resilience word, which none of us like on this panel, I think, and the MCI and all of this, and we all have to do continuing education to keep on top of things, right? And I was sitting in one, and it was a mass casualty, and the person doing the lecture was talking, and again, from a smaller town, and they had I don't remember what caused the mass casualty incident, but this person was saying that here was somebody, and we labeled them black, meaning that they don't have they either are dead or they're going to by the time we can get anybody off the field. And the gist of this whole story was that one of the first people that the crews kept coming across was one of the ambulance services crew. And they kept having to step over him to go find the survivability patients. And you're sitting here and talking and all this, and the lecturer was saying that what fortitude it took to do that, to not help your own first.
Right.
And that's what we are trained to do, is help the others first. And all of this, and the long part of the story is, the person giving the lecture was the person that everybody was stepping over.
Oh.
And he eventually did. Again, their resources were tapped. They did what they were trained to do, even though it was the hardest decision they ever made in their life. And then he ended up surviving. And he preaches now why we follow our training, because again, he shouldn't have made it, right?
Wow.
And the other
That's
ones
powerful.
that were, quote, transported and saved, and obviously some people still die and whatnot, but he was so proud of his crew that they stepped over him.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Because there is still that human factor that you don't shed the human factor, you know.
And it's hard to push it down. And scenario-based stuff, I try to teach that too. When we talk about MCIs, school shootings, unfortunately, is a big one that we have to talk about. And it's first come, first serve in MCI. The first person you come across, you triage. Then it's the next, then it's the next. And I always tell them, I'm like, okay, you get an 18-year-old, they're in the back of their ambulance, and a PD officer has to ride with you. And you're like, okay, like, come on, you can come with me. And somebody's like, why is PD riding with me? And I was like, well, the first person you came across, the shooter. And everybody in the class goes silent. And I go, what are you going to do? Now they're in your ambulance. The first person you came across, they were marked red. You care for them like anybody else, and you transport. Even though your human side knows you have all those kids back there. But that is the way we are taught. You can't just step over him because of what you believe or your judgment. So it's really hard, because you have to leave all of that out the door. This is just my job. We have to take care of everyone. And I push my students to see their bias in that situation, because I think it's very easy to like sit somewhere and be like, no, I'll do the right thing. I'll do the right thing. And then when you're in that situation and you see the death and you see all of that, it becomes, I don't want to say it's like an easy decision, but it's harder. Like
In
that
seconds
human,
to do that.
seconds you're making those decisions, and it does pull at you, because you know what you're leaving behind in some of those situations. And I think that's often overlooked in EMS decision making of they're difficult decisions to make.
I think when I brought up that, again, we're asked to step into somebody's home, and all of that, I think one of the other personas we come up against is television and media, right? That most of the shows, in most incidents, there is a happy outcome at the end, right? And I think we all sitting here on the panel know that it usually is the other way around. So if you remember back when Rescue 911 first came on TV with William Shatner.
I didn't think you were going to say Rescue 911 for a second.
Emergency, Johnny and Roy.
Well, Johnny and Roy, but that, it's so funny now.
I thought you were gonna say, like,
I watched
Reno
that as a
911.
kid. Still did not drive a passion for me to do any of that. And you watch the videos now and you go, man, these are pretty, because like their major emergency was somebody got caught in the fold-away bed, on the couch, and that was like a 20-minute part of the show,
The
getting
Murphy
those
beds.
to get them
pretty cheesy.
extricated out of, right? But what I'm getting at is in Rescue 911, the first few episodes were actually really caught live on video. But I think, again, because of probably privacy and all of these things, that changed and was all reenactments. But every episode, the person lived, right? And so I think part of that now is the general public doesn't know what nursing and EMS and even armed services, they really don't know what any of us do. But they expect when somebody dials 911 or you get sent to war or you whatever it's going to be, they expect somebody to go and do it and be there. So
And to be successful.
And to be successful. And it should have a great outcome and all of those things. And that's hard, just like you said, because then when it's not or the calls aren't going well and the family's then on you too. And it's not that we're not trying, do you know what I mean? And all of that. It's just that there's a will that it's saying this isn't going to happen. You know what I mean? And I think that's a little bit of a persona too with all of us that we carry, that I remember the first few codes and stuff that didn't get revived, and you just sit there and play it over in your head. Did I do what I was supposed to? Did I do this? Did I do this? Did I do that? And like she said, then when the family yells at you and goes, "You killed my kid," in the ER, and I'm going, "Oh, maybe I did." You know what I mean? And we didn't, but that's just the way calls go.
Well, you have nowhere else to put that other than to
No,
internalize
you
it.
internalize it. And, I was laughing one time because I got threatened to be sued because I actually did revive somebody, right? It was a lady at the beauty parlor, and she was under the old hair dryer things, and she had a heart attack and coded. And back then, there were really no do not resuscitative type things and stuff. And so I ran the full code. I got her pulse back. She wasn't breathing on her own, but we were doing everything we needed to do. We got her to the emergency room. They put her on a ventilator. The family finally gets there, and then we find out that she was a lung cancer patient and did not want to be put on a ventilator.
Oh, dear.
So the family comes out of that room as we're cleaning up our gear, just yelling at me that, "You don't know what you just did," and all this. And I was devastated because I'm thinking we did our job. And I
After you
remember-
were so happy,
oh,
too.
We don't get a lot of that.
Yep.
Right. And I remember going into the owner's office, and it's not as cool like you see on TV when a police officer decides to quit, and he throws the badge and you slam down your gun and all of this. I remember going into his office, and I took my pen light and my trauma shears, and I laid it on his desk, and I said, "If I'm going to get sued for doing what we're supposed to, I don't want to play anymore."
And you know what she probably said to you? "I'll see you tomorrow."
No, he says, "You're going to be fine." And,
See?
but
And they just-
there wasn't a lot of counseling then back then. He says, "You're going to be fine. Nothing's going to happen. Don't worry about it." Well, I'm worrying about it. Yeah,
And there's
Don't worry about
absolutely
everything.
no way you could have known that.
No.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely no way.
No.
There's still today.
But that's the
we
thing.
don't know.
We all have our own demons,
Yeah.
right? And all of that. And I think it's, again, everybody just sees us on TV, and when we show up, everything's going to be fine. And we've all been on the other side of that too many times, but we still do it.
I think to piggyback off of that in like the TV show thing, I wish we had like a full audience here. Like, so if you call, if you call 911,
What did you watch? Yeah.
are you obligated to an ambulance?
With that being said, participate in the comments because they're going to be watching this later,
Okay.
and people can answer your comments. So,
So yes.
yeah.
Do you know?
What was the question again?
If you call 911, are you obligated to an ambulance?
No, the ambulance shows, but it's your choice if you get in it or not.
So
I did that right out here once.
yeah. So
Just saying.
in the state of South Dakota,
Again,
so
rural South Dakota. My leg's still on.
my point there is that the TV shows you call 911, you're always getting help. Right?
Yeah.
There's no second. Not in South Dakota. We're not essential, and most of our state does not know that. They think if they call 911, you will get an ambulance, and that's not the case. PD and fire are essential, meaning their counties, their government, they have to be funded. You have to have one. EMS, you do not. 90 roughly percent of our 911 calls are medical in nature, and we're the one thing that we do not legally have to have. So if your volunteers are out of town that day, you're not getting it. If we decide to not show up, there's nobody coming after us saying, you have to be here. It is your obligation to the county, to the government, anything. So I think that is something I'm trying really hard to re-educate on, is that we're not essential. We're not like the TV shows. Just because you're called doesn't mean you're getting us.
Didn't that bill just go to state this?
They're working on it in legislation. They now passed it, and we're like, we're going to try to set funding aside to research it. And I'm like, I don't know if you need to research
Don't
it.
need to
Like,
research
we know, like, we
Right.
don't have EMS. Everybody's shutting their doors. We're not getting refunded. There's no money. Everyone's walking away.
volunteers, right.
And I don't think sometimes they understand, too, like, if you lose EMS, your hospitals are losing a lot of money. How many people do we bring into them? And but on top of that, how much public education does your EMS do on with that? Like, I feel like our team especially, I feel like we're always out doing PR stuff and trying to educate. Or like even this, I take as an education opportunity for people to know that, to vote for us. Mitchell was the first one that had like a dual county system come together, vote like, yes, we want you. And actually, I just took care of one of their patients. He was visiting up in Brookings, ended up having a stroke from the Mitchell area, and I brought him down, and he was like, I'm so appreciative of what you guys do and everything. And he is like, they were going to take our ambulances away where they wouldn't leave the city of Mitchell anymore, and we voted against it. And he is like, it was pennies on my taxes for me to get an ambulance. And where we really need them as farmers, I'm telling you, you guys will drive yourselves to the hospital. You got to quit doing that.
And they'll take a shower before they get in the pickup
Right.
They'll take a shower. They'll come in bleeding.
Yeah, because you can't drive the work truck to town.
truck. Got to rinse the hog manure off.
So James and Karen, were you guys flying in the mid to late 90s in the helicopter? Okay.
James was.
Okay, yeah. Well, your rotors were spinning when we ended up calling back, and I was conscious again. So
Oh, is that right?
was shut down, but the ambulance still showed up. But I was doing good enough by that
I
time.
would dare
so-
say they should have kept the helicopter coming. If we're semi-conscious this far out of Sioux Falls, just keep flying.
But it is something with our culture, especially being rural. I saw someone come into the ER one day, or they came into the ER, and they were literally carrying their eyeball hanging out.
Yeah, you guys
And-
are tough.
And
SOBs.
what happened? Well, I was on the farm, and my husband was backing the trailer up in the cow yard, and he ran me over. And my eye popped out. I said, well, how long? Well, I had to go in the house first and take a shower. And
Oh
You
my
say
gosh.
that. No,
Yeah.
my patient did
Yeah,
the too.
seriously,
I
they
took
do.
a guy to Regents. He was on his riding lawnmower, ran over his propane line, blew up, started on fire, sprinted into his house, jumped in the shower, got in his car, and drove himself to Brookings County with third-degree burns.
Wow.
I was like, you drove yourself? Yeah. I was like, all right, well, I'm going to tell everybody who calls with like
Yeah.
toe pain
with
from
codeine,
now
that's
on.
I
right.
can see the shower to cool off or try to get the heat out, but
Yeah.
the driving.
Yeah, still drove
but
himself.
yeah.
And he was in Arlington. So it's not a
That's not-
big drive
That's
either.
not a short drive, right?
But
Yeah,
again,
nobody wants stinky butt when you get to the hospital. They're just embarrassed.
Right?
you wear clear underwear, and all that, or at least wear underwear.
We don't care.
But
Honestly,
We
it
don't
doesn't
care
matter
if
if
you
you
put
wear
underwear.
underwear in EMS because it's
but
coming
it-
off.
It's coming off anyway.
With
right?
scissors, probably.
yeah.
Yes, we don't pay any attention. You don't have to worry
So
about it.
again, I've had the privilege of being in different areas and stuff. And again, Miranda's using the correct term. South Dakota is frontier America for medicine. If you're 10 miles away from a trauma center, you live in frontier America. Okay, because you lose the luxury of a fire department, a police department, an ambulance service, and so on. I think one of the biggest things that hopefully your viewers that are watching this is, do not be afraid to call 911. Responders would just as soon show up and you don't need us than to not come. And I think with this, everybody thinks that if you call that, you're paying something. Let's look at it. Again, it's funny because I just did a lecture for the paramedic class, and I used AI for it to get the answers, and it was on rural EMS. Okay, and I asked all of the headings in the textbook chapter in the curriculum. I asked it in the context of what is this answer for South Dakota? Okay, and like she said, 80 to 90% of the departments are volunteer. They do lose people because, again, most people are leaving the small towns, and all of that. So the resources just aren't there. And I think you look at this too, most of the people that do live in rural South Dakota are older, okay? And most of them, again, are retired farmers and these kind of things. And they really, they don't believe they have the resources to go to the hospital because of cost and all of those things. And that's kind of sad. I know we're kind of a little bit off topic of what we do and whatnot, but that's part of the stuff we deal with too, is that, why didn't you call us?
I
Do you know what I mean? That's a huge stress on us. And why did you not call
Yeah,
us?
rural South Dakota reminds me of the movie A Million Ways to Die in the West. He's
Oh,
listing
yeah.
all the things you can die
Yeah.
from. This and that.
Yeah.
And major
mean,
injuries.
that's South
and
Dakota.
minor ones.
And minor ones.
I don't know if you've ever traveled from Chamberlain to Rapid City, but that's about the space right there.
Exactly.
Well, I was working a rodeo, and the guy literally had a flail chest, which means his chest was broken in enough places that when he took a breath, the ribs went in instead of out. It's moving different, and
Yeah.
he couldn't breathe, and his lung was starting to collapse and all this. And a bull rider, right? So first we get called into the pen after he got stopped, and I'm going, no, the scene's not safe. I'm not coming in.
Right?
Yeah.
Bulls,
And the
Bull's
clowns are
still
going.
there.
The clowns are going. We got the bull. And I said, no, you don't, because just look what happened. You know what I mean?
That was your training as a kid. You
That
don't
was
go in
like,
with the
you
bull.
don't go
right?
in with the
Yeah,
bull right
they're
away. I could hear
supposed
my
to have
grandpa
them
going, you know.
They're supposed to have that bull out.
Right,
Yes.
but
What
it was
takes.
still in the ring, and I didn't go in. But we finally get him out, and we're, it was at the arena, so we're behind the scenes now, and I'm examining this guy, and I said, dude, you got to go to the hospital. And his response was, no, I don't think it's that bad. And I'm going, no, it's that bad.
Those
He goes,
bull riders.
no, really, I think I'll be okay. And I said,
They're
okay. I said, you have the
ridiculous.
right to refuse, but let me tell you what's going on. So I explained everything to him. No, he says, I'll go to the doctor the minute I get home. So this is in Sioux Falls. And I said, where do you live? And it was somewhere out by Rapid. You know?
Yeah.
Buddy, you're not going to make it. He would not go with us.
It's funny. I
Really?
worked a rodeo last weekend,
You know.
and one of them got bucked off I think it was the bucking Broncos, and he went down, just smoked his head, and he's on the ground for a little bit, and I'm sitting there, and I was like, this doesn't look good. And then their EMT, their trainer, comes over to me, and he goes, he doesn't want to see you. I was like, okay. Is he fine? And he goes, no, he can't see currently, but he doesn't want to see you.
He can't see you, and he
I was
doesn't
like-
want to see you.
Well, he can't see, so can he just listen to me? And he refused, but the rodeo people too. You want to talk about some tough people who are stubborn. That's some of them. But to your point, like you said, I've been called to super sick people before, who are super sick, and they refuse to go because they're so, especially the older generation, they're so worried about the financial burden they'll leave to their family
Right.
that they'll almost won't go. And I hate telling them, but I'm always like, is the cost of that worth your life? What is the dollar sign you will put on your own life? And then I think most people hesitate at that point because I'm like, it's not worth it. You want to be around to see your grandkids graduate and do this. But it's just overall, from across the board, I think healthcare is a little bit of a broken system.
When we operate under consent, you have to have consent to transport. So I went on a call one time with my partner, and we got to the patient, chest pain, pale, diaphoretic, and in a lethal rhythm. He was in VTAC, and absolutely refusing to go in, wouldn't go in. So my partner says, well, we can't take you. So we walked back to the truck, and I said, well, what do you want to do? And she said, nothing. I said, really? She said, no, just wait a minute. So sure enough, within a couple minutes, he went unresponsive. So now we operate under implied
Now
consent.
you got implied consent.
So then we can
Now I can
transport.
take him.
There you go.
He's
I
going to
can
wake
do all
up
the
in the
fun things.
hospital
He's
and
gonna
he's
wake
going to
up
be
in the
like,
hospital.
damn them.
Yep. Right.
That is so true, though. The way we were forced sometimes in those pickles of situations that are difficult. I was going to ask you, what do you think? And this might be personal. Do you think your medical or your trauma calls stick with you more?
Trauma.
Really, I think I'm the opposite. I'm medical.
He gets both.
That's just me.
I think my trauma ones don't stick with me for the fact that, mostly all of my trauma patients I've had, even if there's a trauma surgeon right there, I couldn't say they're more gruesome and hard, but for me, my skills wise, I'm I don't think I ever would have been able to save you. My sick medical patients, I think those ones stick with me longer. Because then I'm could have I done more? What if I would have changed this? Did I put too much fluid? Did I do? And you have that organ battle that you're did I make a mistake?
Well, Randy can relate to this. When Randy and I started, The big thing was, you know, remember the old Polaroid cameras that spit out the picture? I mean, the more gory the call, back then we would take pictures, and a number of the medics actually had scrapbooks of, here's the worst call I've ever been on, you know, and of course,
I hate that question with a passion.
You know,
Yeah.
it is,
It's
but
not, because it's not good.
The question you would
That's-
be so. That's probably my number one asked question in EMS. Is
what's
what is
that?
what is the worst
Oh,
thing
yeah.
you've ever
Yeah.
seen? And I was like, that's not. Why
Let me get
would
my
you?
scrapbook out.
Yeah. Why do you want to make somebody relive that? Like, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go home and cry now.
you know, and I think, you know, we were talking again about how we stay healthy and stuff like that. And I think we do see the worst of both medical and trauma. I think if I go back in my career, that again, I was married when I started in this, but it was just, we didn't have any kids and all of that. So again, like James said, it's hard to relate and some of those things. And everybody says, well, pediatrics are the worst and stuff. And that's just, I think, again, because societally, we young should not die. We accept more of a geriatric death, you know, those types of things. But, and this isn't being conceited or anything, but I think when we get through a medic program especially, right, there's a lot of trust and confidence that are put into us to do what we're supposed to do. And that's, again, where it is the privilege to go to your house and help you instead of, hey, look at me, you know what I mean? My biggest fears when I first started and things that I would have nightmares about was getting lost. Because in Sioux Falls, we covered pretty much Minnehaha County too. And back then it was the old map books, you know. So you're going to J12, you know what I mean? Bingo!
I understand. I've got a terrible sense of direction. I can
And
get turned around. That
there
would
was
be
no
my
GPS,
greatest
there was
fear,
no
too.
anything.
Yeah.
And
No cell phones?
Oh, I'm so
no cell
thankful.
phones.
Can you-
Well, even radio communication back
So
then was
thankful.
2 miles out of Sioux Falls, you were in radio blackout.
Yeah, and the directions were turn left at the old mushroom farm.
Mushroom farm.
Yeah.
Or,
It's like-
you know, Ben's tree, Ben's
Yep.
barn that used to burn down. Well, don't turn there. Go to, you know.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
to think you were in radio blackout, that's
Oh.
so dangerous
It's-
for
you
EMS
just don't even think.
responders nowadays.
Yeah.
Like, you have no idea what you're going into and you can't radio for backup. That's
Yeah, so that was my biggest fear is not knowing what not to do. It was, what if I didn't get there in time?
yeah. I think that's hard
That was
too.
my biggest nightmare.
Well, plus you had to deal with the wrath of the boss if you didn't get there in time.
Well, yeah, but
I
I
still-
mean,
Yeah.
that I think I had a lot of stress with that when I was younger, and even with GPS now, it's amazing. I came right to your driveway. It told me.
It didn't used to.
No, but it was even this good as it said, take a left, take a right, and then take another left, which was your driveway.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
what my
you're
GPS
there.
told me too.
And then you're there. And I went, that's crazy.
And then it says your destination
You know,
is on the left, which
I
is where
remember
your
we
house
were on a call and we're trying to figure out where to go on the map book, and that's when we first got helicopters. And I finally looked because I'm driving, the guy's supposed to be reading the book, and I looked over once and I turned the book so that he was reading it the right way. That was one of the problems we were having. But
yeah.
then I finally, here goes the helicopter, and I said, we're just going to follow that.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
But even verbal communication in those situations. I remember being a brand new EMT and we were going to a pediatric arrest, and I shouldn't laugh. The ped is okay, so I'm not like cruel and unusual. But the medic was in the passenger seat and he was telling me where to go, and he said, turn left right here. And I just hard
Right.
turned right. And he was like, no. And I was
The other
like,
left.
The other left, yeah.
Your
and I
military
was like,
left.
and it's one of those neighborhoods where it's not a quick turnaround. Like, you're going down and you're making a U-turn and the shape. And I was like,
Quick, shut the sirens off.
oh no. I was like, this is going downhill fast. But you brought up divorce. And I think that's a good thing to talk about in EMS is our divorce rate is so high. I've never done like an actual research on how high it is, but it's up there. And I think something that is often overlooked is sacrifice. And it's not to like pat us on the back, but when you think of your Christmas and your Thanksgivings, even for nursing, right? There's somebody always missing from your table to take care of somebody else's family. Even veterans, military, like there's a lot of sacrifice that comes into that. I don't know how many times I've been at a family gathering or a birthday dinner or something and the tone's drop and I'm like, I gotta go. Like, I'll be back. And my family, they really, like, you know, my spouse always says, she's like, I feel like I can't say anything because there's somebody who needs you more than I do, but we still need you to, or we still want you around. And I think that's overlooked, that sacrifice and that push and pull of like the bug and feeling obligated to go, but also like your family deserves you too. And I think that's overlooked as the sacrifices in all of our careers.
Yeah, I can't remember because all of my family has been in healthcare. I can't remember the last time we've ever had Christmas on Christmas Day as a family.
Right.
Yeah.
Or
'Cause you
any
can't.
holiday.
It's
any
just
holiday.
when you get together.
Yeah, we'll pick a day when we're all off and we'll call it Christmas.
Because I'm sure you missed many Christmases,
Every other Christmas.
birthdays. Yeah, and it takes forever to even build that up now in healthcare to get to like every third holiday, every other, or missing them. Like that takes a lot of longevity.
Yeah. And now our daughter and son-in-law are both nurses, so
So you're
you know,
still
it's
back in this
dealing
game.
with when we just have Christmas whenever anybody can get together. It's
Yeah.
not on Christmas Day, but
Hey, Karen, is there something that a mentor has told you anytime through the years that you're still living by
boy,
or utilizing in some way?
That's a good question.
that is a good question. I'm gonna have to think on that.
That's a tough one.
It is.
AI makes it tough on you. AI told me that one today.
It-
It's not mine.
I think I know when I first started in the coronary care unit, a couple of the nurses, Carla and Rita, kind of took me under their wing. They had been there a few years longer than me, and just their friendship and helping like with tough situations. I think they got me through some of the tough situations too, and so it's fun to run into them every once in a while and see them. I don't see them as often as I did before, but I don't know. Anybody else got?
Mine's not appropriate.
There was one. I remember one time somebody said, "You always have to remember it's the patient's emergency and not yours,"
Yes.
because sometimes it's easy to get caught up in the excitement and nervousness. And
Yeah, I think mine that sticks with me, and again, it's not super appropriate, but my very first call on my very first EMT shift,
how inappropriate.
it's not terrible. I'll bleep my own words. Some first time riding in there, first call to get, and you brand new EMT, like, and back then we didn't do ride along. So like, this is your first go, pediatric cardiac arrest. And I think my medic partner could tell that I was just, I think I just drove like this the whole way to the call because I was like, I'm not ready for this. I'm not big enough. You're going to need somebody else. And he looked at me and he said, take a deep breath and get the F out. And that's still till this day sometimes when I go on really bad calls, I'm like, just take a deep breath and get out. Because from there, it's just muscle memory.
Yeah.
Like from there, like all that anxiety and stuff shuts off and you're just in go mode. It's just getting out. So it's not like super sentimental, but sometimes when I'm feeling like it's my emergency and not theirs, I'm like, just take a deep breath and get out of
Well,
this
there's a
ambulance.
John Wayne sign over here that says courage is being scared and saddling up anyway.
Yes.
There you go.
There's
And
a
that's,
cowboy version of that.
Yeah.
that is exactly what it feels like sometimes.
No F words.
Yes, no F words.
Well, you guys, any kind of help mentors have given you in the past?
Again, I've been blessed in my career, and I've learned a lot of things, right? And I think being a good responder is we make mistakes, right? But we learn from them, and we're adults. You learn from those. James and I had the privilege of being in the same class, and the gentleman that taught ours was a medic, and he ended up going on to medical school and became a doctor and was an ER doc for a while and all of those things. I don't know if it's so much I remember key things, right? But I think he just embedded in us of why we're doing this, not just to get through it, if that makes sense, okay? And he didn't tolerate not knowing the answers, you know what I mean?
No.
We learned that, again, if you asked a question and he didn't know the answer, so this is back in 1988, where, again, you had to go to the library and look things up. And the hospital had a medical library, but still,
No
we
way,
learned
Ad.
not to ask questions.
Did they have
you know?
encyclopedias?
Yeah, but we learned not to ask questions. But I think it was because of him that I am who I am now, and even the way I teach. And you can be a teacher where you teach straight curriculum, and you don't tolerate not knowing or not doing it right or not doing whatever. And it's the art of practicing medicine, right? So there is a black and white curriculum, but the patients don't read the book. Right?
And he did say that was one of his statements, that it's called an art for a reason.
Yes. It's you do it on the go sometimes.
So you can name him.
Jim O'Leary. And Jim was in Lenox for a while, and I don't remember where he ended up. But
I know he worked at Sanford for a while. Then he went to Alaska because one of his sons was there.
yeah.
And then now he's back in Sioux Falls, but I don't know.
Well, then knowing that, I got to look him up.
Yeah.
But I think my goal then again when I became an instructor was, again, every time I lecture, I learn something new from even my students. And we're supposed to know it all, and we don't, right? And they ask questions about how I never would have thought about it, or how, and I think that's, again, that camaraderie that you see even in units. You learn something new, even though you do the same thing day in, day out. And all of that, I think one of the biggest things that if you look back on our career, how long we've been doing it, is we didn't have the technology back then, right? There were no 12 leads in the field. We could barely transmit anything to the hospital. Like we said, we didn't have radio communications. It was a very high-stress job. They put a lot of response. We do the same thing an emergency room physician will do, except crack your chest, right? And all of that. And I think I just go back to how calm and collective he always was in lectures, right? And I think I look back at a bunch of people that when I was an EMT learning and going to school, and then just learning from everybody else, that I can't think of a specific, here's the thing.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder,
that's fine.
have you ever said the term slow is smooth and smooth is fast?
No.
Oh.
Heard that a few times.
I was going to say that's Ryan preached that, and from the
Yeah.
way Jim taught you and then you taught
It probably
Ryan.
was. And again, who she's talking about is the person that's running the EMS sector now at Sanford. And he was actually a former student of mine also.
And then I was a former student of
Student
his.
So it has passed
And now
down.
you all work together.
And we all work together, which again, it's a blessing for me in my career. But within the first week I was there, Ryan pulled out a folder, and here's a bunch of my old handouts. And he took a presentation that I had done on professionalism and how to keep us sane and all of this. And it has a picture of my youngest kid in it. And I said, have you been showing this for years? And he said, yeah. And I said, you and my daughter royalties. Because she's a SAG actress now. Yeah, you know what I mean? But I think we all see ourselves now as mentors,
I try to.
right?
I think a big thing with seeing myself as a mentor, and especially with being an educator, something I've learned is a lot of people do look for you for answers. And at first, when I first started not knowing those answers, I always thought that meant that I was less of an educator then. And what I've learned along the way is it actually makes me better, because then I'm not only teaching my students EMS, but I'm teaching them how to not know. Like, hey, it's okay to say, I don't know. Like, let me find out. Let me do my research. Let me be thorough. Because I think so often in EMS that's lost, where you do feel less than or belittled for not knowing everything, because I feel like that was always just the stigma that was pressed on us. So now I'm more proud to look at my students like, I don't know, but I'll find out for you. And giving them that accountability to do the same things in real life and real situational calls. But also I work with you guys, and I learn something every day in that office, whether I want to or not. So
Yeah,
And
I do
shared
too.
that-
And 41 years. And I just said this the other day when I was teaching a class. I said, I fail yet to find one day in the last 41 years that I didn't learn something. And
I don't know. I love coming back from difficult calls, and we will have coffee some mornings. Travis, it's for a very brief time period. We will have our coffee, and just hearing your guys' insight, like that
debriefs.
hypothermic cardiac arrest
Oh,
I had,
that
and
was-
you guys were there, and I was talking to you, and like your thoughts and your input. It's just so nice to learn and be pushed. Where like in the call I can only do so much, but then coming back to you guys and you're being like, well, next time think of this or think of that. And sometimes I'm like, darn. And then other times I'm like, that's a really good idea. I just don't want to tell James he was right.
Well, that goes back to our cultural
seen a
change that we
theme.
talked about. That
We like to pick on James.
if she would have done that 40 years ago and talked about this call, and I'm unsure about this and I'm unsure of that, right away they would have gone, why didn't you know the answer? right?
Yeah.
Now it's we talk it through, and we even though it's written in the book, patients don't read the book, and they don't get injured the way they're supposed to. They don't get sick the way they're supposed to, so that we know exactly what's going on. And you do have to then do your critical thinking, like you said, and do that. And I think that's now that has developed in our culture, for the most part, is that we do have that open space where we can do that and say, hey, I really got a question about this, So it's kind of the old what stays in Vegas, kind of a thing.
Okay.
And in the old days, that didn't happen. I mean, if you did something wrong,
Yeah, you were
you
ridiculed.
ridiculed majorly for that.
It's less blaming, and now what's the way ahead?
Well, and I think it's less
instead.
criticizing and more educating. Like we're doing less criticism and less Monday morning quarterbacking and more like, let's sit down and figure out how to make this better, because if we're better, then our patient outcomes are better. So it's not just us that are failing, we're failing our patients in the long run. So I think that really helps. And I think the other thing that we have to think about, and I think you could maybe testify to this in hospital and you guys, is I think we have to do that because I think our patients are sicker than they've ever been. Our patients now, I think it's been since COVID.
Since COVID.
Like our patients are night and day different. Like, I
Really?
mean, heavier, sicker, more comorbidities. Like it's
Sepsis is just a common.
sepsis. Like they're just, I don't know, they're just really sick patients where you are getting more stuck in these binds with the kidneys and the heart not getting along, or sepsis, like how much fluid can you give, because they also have CHF, or maybe they have COPD and now they have pulmonary edema. So you're battling all these things that don't like each other and you're almost gridlocked in your decisions. And I think pre-hospital, we do the best we can, but I think it's impossible to know everything. And that's where I think we have to keep pushing ourselves. I think our patients are doing a lot of that for us because they're just really sick.
And the hospitals are plumb full all the time. I hear that from the nurses that are still at the bedside. The hospital is there's never, it seems like there's hardly ever an empty bed to put another patient in. And it's just, patients are sick.
Do you guys see us getting to a critical mass where you just can't hire enough caretakers?
Yeah.
I think,
Are you right
honestly,
there?
we might be pushing it
that way.
already.
Yeah.
Right now?
I think a lot of times, even in Sioux Falls, both of our hospitals are full. And I teach that too because both of our hospitals are dang near capacity. If we took a plane crash like in Sioux City, what would our hospitals do?
Yeah, your nurse
What
to
would our
patient
EMS
ratio
hospitals?
is,
We would maybe have to start flying people to other states. Like, and
but are they any better,
I don't know. And I think both of our hospitals, Sanford and Bear, are fantastic. I think they would do the best they can, but it's also you're maxed out on resources too. So then where do you go? If you have 200 and some patients, that's a lot of people to figure out what to do with.
Yeah, when COVID was going on, I was in on some meetings at the Air Guard there, dealing with not so much the people with the expertise, but the space.
Yep.
And we were having a bunch of planning meetings on what facilities we were going to use. They're going to be moving hospital beds to those, and trying to get some of our people to help where they can help and leave the professionals where they needed to be and stuff. And it was pretty amazing watching the planning that was going on for the what if. They didn't have to pull the trigger on it, but that planning was real interesting. But it really showed the need and how bad it could get.
I think we got better at healthcare through COVID. I mean, I think COVID came along and showed us what we didn't know really fast. And now, like, I think we've intubate far less people, like COPD, CHF patients, far less intubations, which they're actually doing better recovery-wise because they don't get stuck on the vent with pneumonia. But nursing side of it, do you feel like nursing has recovered from COVID, like in workforce? I know that I think registration and nursing programs is still low.
I don't know the numbers, but yeah, I know every 6 months they're hiring just a ton of whatever nurses they can get.
well, you see it where we work.
You know.
There's the new employees. There's
Yep.
so many
Yeah.
every day. There's
Yeah.
just
And I think the standards are changing with that.
About going through some of your best days.
I know mine.
go ahead.
Usually they stick out.
I delivered a baby last year.
Oh, yeah.
And that was, I don't know. And I went through a rough patch right around there where I had a lot of fatalities. So then coming off a shift where you have a bad DOA and then like a week later getting to bring life into the world, I don't know. It just makes some things feel a little bit more worth it. However, in the moment, you're absolutely terrified. Like you have two patients, they're vastly different in vitals and everything they need. But when you're holding that brand new, he was a boy, brand new baby boy in your arms, like, I don't know, like nothing else mattered. Like I still seen mom, taking care of mom, getting them to the hospital, but like the joy that you get from that was so nice. And I think it's because I normally see people exiting the world and I'm with them in those final
Right.
moments,
Yeah.
right? Where now I finally get to see somebody coming into life. And that was a very beautiful moment. And the mom was super thankful, super happy. It was her first baby. I have no idea how it came out so fast, but it
Were
did.
you in a non-perfect environment, or?
Oh, no, we were in a bathroom.
You were in a bathroom in their home.
In their home. Yep.
Wow.
I asked if they had a dryer, and the grandmother, bless her heart, handed me a blow dryer, and I really just wanted warm towels. Which she got me warm towels, but like a very non-imperfect environment.
Low heat setting,
Yes.
please.
But
Boil the water, heat the
baby
towels.
came
Watch the
out
distance.
perfect. Mom did fantastic. Got them both to the hospital. They did so well. So that one lately has been one that sticks in my head. It was my best day. There's
Very
some like
cool.
critical care ICU patients that I'm very proud of, but bringing life into the world when you take a lot, well, I don't take a lot out, but are a part of a lot of people leaving is really nice to have.
Why are we all looking at you?
Everybody's
I don't know.
looking
Everybody's
around.
looking at the old man over here. He's got just as much of experience.
Oh, everybody's
and
going to
Karen
get the
does, but,
chance.
I teach this, but again, it was rare I got to have this. But my perfect day was we didn't run a call.
Because nobody needed you.
I start out every EMS class that I ever teach saying, we're going to teach you, and I don't say train because that's what we do with horses and dogs, and you know what I mean? We're going to teach you or educate you in what is going to be coming down the road. And I said, truthfully, I'm hoping I'm teaching you a career you never have to use when you think about that, right? Because truthfully, I don't want people to see things I've seen, not seen, but we do have to prepare them for that. I've had a lot of deliveries. I've had 15. We had twins in the back of an ambulance, which then it's really, and it is nothing like 9/11 again because nobody named them after me.
Mine wasn't either. I was really hoping for the middle name Marie.
But this is kind of a double-edged story, but like I said, I've only hauled two people I've ever known. One of them was a firefighter, and it came in as a possible heart attack. And I'm looking around, and it was at a wellness center where it was in the wintertime where, again, most of the geriatrics go and walk laps. So it kind of made sense. And I don't see anybody fitting that picture in my head. Here's this young guy over in the weights, and he was doing incline bench presses. Instead of re-racking, he bounced it in and bounced and broke his sternum in half.
Ooh.
And put his heart rate down to 20, right? And he literally would pass out. I slapped him once, so edit that part out. And that
Not
woke him
even
up.
a sternal
And that
rub,
woke him up. That woke him up. But the other one is kind of how sometimes it's very easy for us to fall into our roles, right? And here's this lady at a high school that was standing on a chair, hanging something up, roller chair that rolled, hit her head on the desk. So again, blood all over. Her hair was all messed up. And I'm thinking, you got the worst hairdo in the world, And I broke one of my cardinal rules of not asking their name. Okay. So I'm taking care, did everything, by the book, did everything. And we were transporting into the hospital. She was non-emergent, so we had time. And so I'm doing paperwork. And I asked her name. And she gave it to me. And I went, my best friend's mom has that name.
Oh, no.
And I went, so your address?
And
This
now
for
you
charting.
know.
And it just for charting. Yeah, no, but you're filling out paperwork. And I went, weird. That's where my best friend lives too, you know? And I literally remember being ashamed, but it was my best day because it taught me something. And I put the clipboard down on the bench and I took her hand and she says, I can tell the story. So I said, Mrs. Joyce, I said, I am so ashamed that I didn't recognize you and that I didn't ask your name, right? Because we're trying to be, it's a person, it's a human being, right? They're not a trauma call, they're not a medical call, they're a person. I'll never forget this, is she took my hand, so you're me, and she did, and she's laying on the gurney, and she goes, that's okay, dear, she said. I thought you were doing a very professional job. And I'm like, well, thank you, Mrs. Joyce, but I feel about this big right now.
Randy,
because
that's not where
I
I thought
didn't
this
do
was
that.
going. I thought she was going to take your hand.
Oh,
and
no,
go,
no, slap
That's
me. Yeah,
okay, honey.
smack.
I don't remember who you are either.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, do I know you?
But
Yeah, but she had a hit on the head.
well, yeah, that's a good point. But we do sometimes, and that's kind of what we started with this whole podcast with, is we have a lot of stresses and stuff. And we sometimes do just fall into the role, which I think, again, everybody here, anything we teach, they're not a statistic, they're not a call, they're a person, right? And I'll literally, if your affective domain is horrible, you may not make it through my class because I'll find a way to get rid of you because we are dealing with humans. We're not dealing with statistics. We're not dealing with whatever. And that humbled me horribly. And I was going to say back on a previous question, mentors. And I've told him this, that James said, at the beginning, you were all over with your career, and everywhere in different places. I'm not sure if that was because he's hard to work with or if he just was promoting to different things. He's never really told me that.
Couldn't keep a job.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to say that. But,
I figured I'd say it for you because that's usually the joke.
Yeah.
and I told
not
him
always
this,
good on a resume.
that when he came back to Sioux Falls, I was still working. I think it was maybe part-time then. I don't remember. But anyways, we teamed up a lot. So I remember running this call, and I remember sitting here going, come on, James, geez, move this along, And he's doing it the correct way. He's not skipping steps. He's not doing, you know what I mean? And we teach, all of us teach, that when you do an assessment, you do it the same way every time so you can't make mistakes. And I'm sitting here going, oh, come on, dude. I'd have been gone 8 minutes ago, or whatever it was. And I remember going home after that shift, and I did. I looked myself in the mirror and I said, you should be ashamed of yourself. I said, James is doing it right. Not that I was doing it wrong, because we do learn how to cut corners, but he refuses to cut the corner, right? And he ashamed me of that. And I tell that story in every class I've taught after that, and I never told him that until we got a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
we were talking
yeah.
about it and
James,
stuff.
I think you still have that same habit. You don't cut any
Yeah, he
corners
doesn't.
teaching ever. Sometimes I'm like, James, just let it go for the day. And you're like, no, this is the way it's got to go.
Gotta get it done.
But
Recently,
good
when you told
military
me
man
about that
over there.
WAGCA,
He would
be. Yes, yeah.
I
would
was
be.
like, no.
But no, and again, it was because we all lose sight at some point in time. That's one of our big things is burnout, and we get complacent. We just it's, you know what I mean? And you need a kick in the pants once in a while. And I think that goes back to her story of being able to share calls and not fearing that you're going to get ridiculed, that, oh, I would have done the same thing, or did you think about this? And you know what I mean? And that, again, I think is the biggest change I've seen in 40 plus years is literally, if you made mistakes, you just shouldn't be doing it. And instead of, how do we fix you?
That's okay. You guys normally tell me what I have to fix, and Karen normally tells me I did a good job.
Yeah, but now this is the same lady that had to monitor me in something, and she goes, "This may not go well for you next week, right?" And I said, "Okay, but if you don't pass me, you're going to be teaching the classes." And she goes, "You're going to do great."
True story.
And along with that, I was starting at a particular place, and one of my first calls on orientation was a shooting, and we get to the hospital, and the doctor is now talking to the preceptor. The doctor doesn't know me, and ask him all these questions, and he said, "Was there an exit wound?" And the preceptor said, "Nope." And the doctor said, "How do you know? Did you look?" And the preceptor said, "I didn't look, but James was running the call, and if he didn't look, he will not be working here tomorrow." And he was serious, because that's how strict they were on things.
Right.
You didn't overlook stuff like that.
It was a big perfectionism.
There was a perfectionism.
And we still have a little bit of a
I think
component
a
of
lot
that.
of, yeah.
And I don't know if it's EMS or if it's our personalities.
Both.
Maybe a little bit.
I think it might be a little bit of both. I think we're
Maybe
all a little bit
both.
type A.
Yes.
A little bit.
But the other thing I'm noticing is each one of you have kind of mentioned something that points towards self-assessment.
Yeah.
And that is an art. That is something you have to learn. And I'm hearing that here all, throughout the podcast here, actually. So I want to commend you on that. I definitely want to do that because I actually just sent a letter to somebody this morning apologizing for the way I was for some things in the past, left it as 3 sentences or less. And there's reasons I did that dealing with somebody else in my family just recently. And it wasn't easy. It was hard, but I had to own it. But the self-assessment, that's not easy. And you guys have that as an art already, I can tell.
I think that's where we grow the most at. Like,
do.
I think that's where we have our best growth is looking internally and being like, I didn't do my best on that. It doesn't matter what call I'm running. I can be with the same medic I've worked with, same EMT, new people, regardless. I always ask the nursing staff when I bring a patient in, is there something you would have liked me to do better or different? And then I always ask my partner the same thing. And that's every call. And the reason why I do that is because every call they could need something different from me. And I want to make sure that I'm being that mentor or I'm being that leader in those calls. Because a lot of times we have new EMTs and new people who they're young. They don't have those life experiences. And we're going to these traumatic calls. And like, I don't want you to feel like you're alone. I want you to feel like you have me and you have a partner in this. And if I don't do that, then tell me so I can improve for my next one. And I think if you don't do that, you're stagnant. And I don't know how you can last long in this career if you're not moving forward.
Right.
I think Randy and I had that as an advantage at Sioux Falls because when we started, so many of the medics that worked there had years of experience already. And so we could learn almost as much when we would listen to them say, here's a call I went on and this was what I did and that was stupid, we'll never do that again. Or they said, here's a call I was on and we did this and that worked really great. So we didn't have to go through the whole, oops, I did this and that was stupid. We could learn a lot from listening to other people.
I think be gracious with yourself.
Yeah.
I get told that a lot. Be easier on yourself.
Be on yourself.
Yep. You need to do that.
And thank you for saying that. But I think everybody right here and anybody that's in our world, there's hardly any of us that want to stand up in the spotlight and take a certificate or have a ceremony or have whatever, right? If I could wear a mask, I probably would have done that too, because it's not about me, right? And I think that's the biggest thing we all have learned, because we have seen people in our careers that it is about me, right?
All careers.
And again, right? And again, it comes back to just that humbling of oneself. And I think, again, I'm older than everybody, even Karen, I think, but thanks a lot, Karen.
Much older.
Much older than Karen.
One year.
Because she started nursing at 17.
I think you got me by 1 year.
1 year.
Well, Miranda just turned 21 a couple years
I
ago.
feel really good about myself right now.
But you know,
That's why we have you in the middle of the Roosevelt
Yeah,
Thorns.
right,
Is that
right.
how they say it?
I
The
think,
rose in the middle, yeah.
but that's life, right? And I think, again, when I first became a medic, is, boy, bring on the big trauma, bring on, just let me show what I can do. And like I said, my best days are, I got paid to do nothing.
Yep.
Right?
Perfect. Randy, what was one of your best days?
For myself.
And you after that.
Or
James.
Yeah. I was thinking a little bit about that while some of the people are talking, and I'm like, and I think, I don't know if I can point to one particular, but there was a number of times, especially probably more so on flights, because coming in with a helicopter or whatever, you land in a lot of small towns, and they have such limited resources. And if we hadn't shown up with the resources that were supplied to us, the patient literally would not have lived. And so every time you bring those patients back to the hospital, it gives you very much a feeling of satisfaction that you made a big difference in somebody's life. And I'm not in any way discrediting these small hospitals. They work with the resources they have, but there's certain pieces of equipment and and either training skills or medicate, they just might not have. And so,
It's like watching MASH.
yeah.
And I think for you, don't you get like that feeling when you see the relief, like on their faces when you guys walk in,
Oh,
like
yeah,
that
they're-
sense
yeah.
of relief that they have?
And even being on the flight team, and so I've been on the street end of it while working on the flight team and at a bad, terrible car accident. And things are just really going south. And the back door's open and a flight crew walks in and you're like, oh,
It's like a
it's going to
deep
be
breath.
okay now. You know, you just get that feeling. Now, they may be just as nervous as I am, you know, but you just get a kind of a sense of, oh, everything will be okay now.
It's that resources that's coming. It's just
It's-
that
yep.
it's like a letdown of you're not alone.
I'm not alone anymore. Yeah.
And if I was a person laying there, seeing the first people, I'd have that relief. But seeing more show up as the one laying there, oh yeah. if
Either that or
you're
you know
conscious
you're
of
really
that.
sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Karen? One or two of your best days or best
You know,
situations?
I'm gonna twist your thoughts a little bit. Yeah, it's not about us. We all know that, but I think people might be surprised to know that we don't get a lot of gratitude from the patients. And I remember one thank you card that I got, and I had over 800 flights in my 10 years flying. I have been a nurse for 41 years. I got one thank you card from a patient's family member. And it's not about me, but it made me feel like, okay, this is what I really want to do. And I really want to make a difference in people's lives. And that's why I went into nursing too. But that, I guess that, that really helped, you know, maybe smooth over the edges of, you know, the bad days.
You're right. You know, that is truly interesting because hospitals and ERs, they get thank you notes all the time, but the crew that kept the patient alive to get to the hospital never gets a thank you.
Yeah.
No, very rarely.
Very rarely.
And I
Like
think
people don't want
Which
to
is
take
one
the
of the-
time to research who was that. They
well,
can't.
I
they
also
just don't
think it's
direct it.
because
They
we
expect
spend
it
less
generally.
time with them too.
And that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like I
don't
said,
have
they expect it.
They
and-
expect
and
it, yeah.
You should have shown it. Why didn't you? You know, with that. So I think
And I think that's just to go to show we put somebody back at your table, but our table is missing a spot. And we don't often get that thank you card for that. And our families especially don't. I feel like, you know, when you think about podcasts, like I think great people to interview would be like families of first responders. Because they
Yeah, yeah.
are equal. I don't want to say they're traumatized to some extent in some ways.
They're
and
invested in it just as.
and they sacrifice
Because of the
so
sacrifice,
much. Like
I was going to ask way at the beginning, this came to my head. I was going to ask if you guys have, in general, like retirement ceremonies or anything, or is it just kind of like you got your last day? So if you did have ceremonies, do they recognize the family? Because on the military side, we do.
very rarely.
There's actually a certificate that you have to ask for it, but it's for your family, and the president signs it, just like the certificate for yourself, and it is thanking the family members for serving.
Do you know, I think again, and it goes back to Miranda's comment that EMS in particular is not deemed essential. So being in Orange County for 21 and a half years now, EMS is fire-based, so they do get the recognition. So what you know, when firefighters retire, you know, you get your helmet, you get a brand new helmet. It's a ceremony, right?
Not
and
for
stuff.
EMS.
And that maybe been one of my best days. That when I retired from the college, my current class, who I quit in the middle of their cohort, which for the month or 3 weeks before I left, everybody I taught with who taught under me, but they quitter. How you doing, quitter?
How dare you
Yeah,
leave?
how you doing, quitter? You know, the last day that I was there on campus with the class and the other instructors, the fire department guys actually made a helmet shield for me, which
very cool.
that's outside the brotherhood. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
But I think what we do as educators is a little different because we do become part of their brotherhood. You know what I mean? So yes, there's that, but private services, no, when you're done, you're done.
I was going to say, how long was Gordon?
Deckinga?
Yeah, how long was he? I can't remember what his sign said.
He was working in Sioux Falls before I started.
So if you had a rough year.
So he would have quit around Sioux Falls about 92, and he was probably started in Sioux Falls in 85.
I was, yeah.
How many
'cause I
years
an
ago was
EMT at
85?
the
I
time.
can't do quick math
Yes,
right now.
I was an
so,
EMT at the
anyways,
time.
my old director, since 85, right? So many, many years of EMS service, director, streets, all of the above. The state and stuff, no recognition from them. Our service did throw him like a little going away party, go out to dinner, and we got him a little old CPR board that we had engraved. But if like your service doesn't do anything for you, nobody else is going to recognize you. You don't get anything, and it's not a ceremony. It's just a going away party at a bowling alley if you get that, and that's a big if. It really depends on, are you close with the people you work with? You know, how much do you work? Otherwise, there's like PD, fire, huge recognition. EMS, you're just done. EMS, even funerals, sometimes you might get recognition and sometimes you might not. Where fire and PD normally have like all of the vehicles in it, and EMS is hit or miss.
Nature of the beast, kind of.
I think with EMS, the only way you would get recognition at a funeral is if you died in the line of duty.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
we
think
saw
that's
that
correct,
with the
too.
helicopter crash,
Yeah.
or crashes,
Yeah.
and stuff. That then it's a community event, but I think just individually, no.
And I don't, the sad, I guess, I don't know if it's sad or good. I think it's perception on that is we still do it. Like we all still show up every single day without that, and knowing that's not at the end of the line, and knowing there's not a lot of doors open for us, and that's a bug or passion, compassion, I guess, whatever we want to call it, but we do it, and we do it for our communities and for our families and for everybody else. And I think our families all do it for that same reason, is like, yeah, you're leaving us today, but you know, if we needed somebody, we'd hope we would get somebody like you. And that's something I preach to my students too, is be the caregiver you would want taking care of your parent. And if you're anything less, then you need to fix something.
Yeah, I had a
Sounded
fighter
nice.
pilot say one time, actually the guy that emceed my retirement ceremony, he flies the F-16. He's the demonstration pilot for the F-16 the last 2 years. FEMA is his call sign. But he just said this simple thing that says, be an American worth dying for. Every subject we talk about, you can apply that. And I just thought that was a pretty amazing thing to say,
Yeah, I think that is good. 'Cause
even more so to have in here.
Yeah.
I think people don't realize like the type of stuff we go out in sometimes. And I just educated about this at the trauma symposium. Like they were now bashing to James and Karen over here, but we had a flight medic up there, and they're like, "Oh, it's bad weather, we don't go." And I was like, "That must be nice, because when you're in the ground ambulance, we're
go.
going." They're like, "We'll send you a plow. Don't worry about like we
What,
don't
what
get
about
to say
safety
no."
first?
Yeah, safe.
Rule
gone.
number 7?
If you can't
Yeah,
get to
number
the
7.
scene, it's
Yeah.
So it's we're going all the time. So sometimes we are put in some dangerous situations, and it's
And it's hard to draw that line. Where is it? This is the danger, a line I won't cross, versus this is a line where somebody needs me. And I think, again, going back to what we talked about earlier, on a big city EMS service, it's maybe easier to draw that line because I don't know who I'm going for. But when you're on a volunteer service in South Dakota,
It's a little harder.
and I think that's harder
know.
too, because like if you're in Sioux Falls, right, you might be like, well, somebody else will go.
yeah.
Like somebody else will get convinced. But when you're out in the counties like that, then you have that pressure. Like nobody else is going to come for you. So then you have that weight on you too of like it's me or no one. And then I feel like that line gets pushed further and further away with those human decisions being put in there.
And I think what Karen said is her greatest day was she got that thank you note, right? And I think I can speak for all of us. We're not advocating here that you should come out and praise us at all.
No.
At all. When Sanford's helicopter went down and had the fatalities, I knew the pilot real well. The paramedic that died was a student of mine and then a coworker. I didn't know the nurse
I knew the
very
nurse.
well at all, right?
I had worked with her.
Shannon said about a month before, we were talking about something one day, and she said, I don't know if anybody even knows like who I am or if I did something, or nobody's ever going to know about that. Nobody's going to know my name, is what she said.
Oh, wow.
And she wasn't asking to be, but it was amazing to see the community, how that pulled together when that happened, because we had services coming from all over the state, because we held it in the Elman Center at Augustana. And I don't think I'll ever forget that she felt she wasn't asking to be recognized, but I think everybody needs a way to go pat once in a while, you know? And if we don't do it with our own people, it doesn't happen, which again goes way back to the beginning, that just didn't happen at the beginning. And I remembered that after that was all kind of said and done, and they have the nice bronze, memorial and stuff. And I just went, Shannon, you don't know how many people's lives, we can't even fathom the amount of people's lives that we have affected. And I always remembered as a kid that Vidal Sassoon shampoo commercial that I tried it, and then I told my friend, and she tried it. Who told her friend? Do you remember that one?
I do.
Now, do you?
No.
James hasn't had hair for a long
James
time.
never had hair.
That was probably
been a
not.
while.
He just didn't pay attention to shampoo
right.
commercials. But I bring that up because when I became an educator, and I was talking to one of the guys that I taught with and stuff, and one day we just said, "Do you think we're making a difference in what we do?" And we got to talking about different things. And yeah, there's a lot of people that are around because of what we did, not personally, but if I would have been Miranda's instructor, if she made a difference in one person's life, the 1,000 hours that we invested in training, educating Miranda, or how we got educated, or, everything makes a difference if it's one person. But then they influence somebody. So again, it's that Vidal Sassoon thing where
chain
it just
reaction,
boom, boom, boom,
Ripple
boom.
effect.
And I'm not bragging or anything, but when I left here, I think I looked and I had almost 10,000 students that I'd had in South Dakota. And then I was in California for 21 and a half years, and they just did the medic side. And we had a little over 8,000, I think. Anyway, but it's ridiculous numbers. But you look at that if they ran a call, each one of those ran one call that made a difference, that's all I care about, right? I don't want a plaque. I don't want anything. I just want to know that. And so I think back best days for me, after you said that, I went, no, my best days are I get an email or a text from a former student. They're going to go, when you talked about this and you said you're never going to see it, and I saw it. And I remembered to take a deep breath and step the F out.
Take a deep breath.
Right?
Those
out.
emails are really nice. I get
And
some sometimes.
It does kind of just reiterate, like I said, I'm retired. And they talk to me. Well, I guess I'm not. That's true.
Not anymore.
I retired once. But, my dad even said, "Why are you still working?" And I said, "To be honest, Dad," I said, "one, I don't know what I would do. But two, I still think I have something to give to somebody that's going to make a difference." Right? And then when you get with a group of people and we don't have the stigma of being afraid to talk about things and whatnot, that we become better educators, we become better people, and hopefully that then goes to the people that we are in class with, right?
I agree with that.
And to me, that's a huge change from 40 years ago, right? If you couldn't pass the class, you're out. If you couldn't do this, we see students that maybe they're not a good test taker, but that doesn't mean they're not a good patient person, right? So we have to look back past some things to how do you build them up to be able to do those minimal requirements so that they have the opportunity that we've all had to learn from that stuff.
I think that
Right.
comes from the self-assessment you talked about, though, too. I don't know how many times me and James have been in each other's offices, and we're like, I can't get through to the student. What's your thoughts? Like, how can we change it? So we're, even in the education side, we're not above it. And, like, we'll sit at the table, and we just had our site visit not too long ago, and I think some of those discussions were a little bit heated. And not, like, in a way that we were mad at each other, but in a way that we're pushing each other. Like, is this a student's thing, or is this us? Do we need to be better? Are we failing them in some ways? And I think what's really nice about our team is we all have such a passion that we're not afraid to push each other a little bit. And I think when we do that, then we all become better. And our team as a whole, I think, just keeps leveling up all the time. because we constantly have that re-self-assessment, the drive to then go and change and the drive to do more. Sometimes I look at my schedule and I'm like, I don't know what we're doing. We got to stop. But it always turns out so well, and we always do so great, and I think that's because of the team we have. We do give James a really hard time, but he's like he's a super great human. He just lacks hair.
Yeah, thanks. If that's the only flaw, I can go with that.
We started this with talking about stresses and all of that. I think I personally have a new stress now is, what if I don't do my job right? Right? Because we are now being trusted to educate the next generation.
I haven't thought about that in a not bit, and now it's
No,
right at the
now
front
she's
of
not
my
going to be able to sleep tonight.
Right.
James sleeps like a baby no matter what.
When I
matter
first
what.
started teaching, my first class was like 150 EMT students, and they all got through, and I had like a 92% pass rate, and I went home, and I was like, yes. And then I like stopped there, and Reed was like, what's wrong? And I was like, I just put 150 some EMTs into this our state. I was like, I'm excited, and I'm also very terrified.
Yeah.
Scared to death.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's not like I don't feel like I did them. I feel like I did them well, but then it comes back to, did I do enough? Did I set you up for enough success? And it's not even about the education. It's about the way your state is. We're not essential. We don't have resources. You're on your own. You don't have and then I'm like, oh man, I think I just fed this whole class a line of BS, and they're going to come back and they're going to hate me later. But then I get those emails that are like, hey, we're up in North Dakota and a guy got electrocuted and I knew exactly what to do. And I was like, well, you don't see that often, so I'm really glad you knew what to do.
Right.
Wow.
But it's you do have that stress of, and I think you maybe, do you?
Oh, yeah.
Or you, like you do ACLS, you do all that, like, and I feel like, did I teach it right? And sometimes it's hard too because we're teaching all different, most times it's EMTs and medics, but we'll go out and teach PALS and stuff, and you're teaching different providers, PAs, MDs, and that gets a little intimidating sometimes too. Like, should I really be teaching you? Like, okay.
And we were thinking about teaching, and I was telling Randy this on the way up. A student of mine was struggling with something last night, and I couldn't see what he was doing, what was going wrong, and another one of the students was able to look over and make a suggestion, and that was exactly what the person was doing wrong.
So they're teaching each other.
They're teaching each other, right?
Because I
Perfect.
feel like we teach to instill the voice.
Yeah.
Everybody should have a voice, and I think that's, the more you have a voice, the more issues that we have are going to be lost. But it's not going to be without a lack of stress, so we all just deal with it. Don't drink 4 roses to handle your stress. Go to the gym. I'm just kidding.
Okay, that leads me into my next question.
You're out.
Right.
I was going to call it 4 seasons again, and I really had to think it's 4 roses.
Yeah, just read the label. It's right over there.
Not that we're promoting any other brand.
No.
Yeah, that's just a portion of what's in here.
That's just a backdrop.
So, if you had to give your 18-year-old self some advice, what would it be? Should I quit asking you first when I...
No, I enjoy this.
Nope,
They
that's
get
okay.
a chance to
I-
think more.
Were you
I
married
can-
at 18?
No.
Oh, wow.
I'd say he's still out there.
Don't worry, Terry, you won't be the
Be
choice.
patient. I would say never stop learning, and don't be afraid
that one.
to take risks. I took some risks with different careers, like being on the flight team after 20. I was a nurse for 20 years, and I was scared to death. It's like, oh, what am I getting into? Am I going to be good enough? I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know everything. I thought then that I needed to know everything before I could take off and go on a flight. And I learned, like I said earlier, I learned something every day. And I had good resources. I worked with great people. I learned from them. So I guess at 18, I would say I wasn't the best student my first couple years of college. So I would say settle down and
It's the 4 roses.
no, well, it wasn't quite that fancy back then, but don't spend so much time.
Starving college students.
But But yeah, I had great people along the way. Great, wonderful instructors and coworkers, and yeah, very blessed.
Just go back, and what's the one thing I'd tell my 18-year-old self? Do more because you can. Because you're good enough to do more. That's probably what I told myself.
Did you have doubts on that earlier?
Yeah, I didn't start medical school till late. But it's when you look at nursing, like being a tech and a nurse and stuff, and like these people are incredible when you're looking at them, and you just always have those doubts when you see all the things they're handling and managing. Like
I could never do that.
Yeah, am I capable of that? Am I smart enough? Do I have the time management? And I mean, there's still days where you have your doubts, but now looking where I'm at now and how much I'm doing and how proud I am of everything I'm doing, I wish I would have started earlier. And maybe done more schooling, done PA school, gone maybe med school route, and done those things when you're younger and it's easier.
I don't remember the name of it. Do you remember on West 12th Street, there was a scuba shop. It's not there anymore. It's like 12th and Marion. But to sum it up, they had a sign posted outside, and that's really what I would say. It said, someday when you retire, you'll feel worse about the things you didn't do than the things you did do. And I agreed with that. I think that would be something I would have told my 18-year-old self.
At first, I thought you were going to say, I wish you would have done scuba diving.
I wish I would have. Nope.
I was waiting for that.
That's not one thing I have ever wanted to do.
I was like, this is not where I thought we were going, James.
I think we all play the game that would have, should have, could have. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I am one of those products of our business that I've been divorced and those kind of things. And yes, I missed a ton of family issues and kid issues and you name it, and all of that. I kind of believe, again, that you can use whatever word, faith, whatever you want to use and stuff, in God's plan and those kind of things, that I think that I wouldn't be where I'm at if I didn't have all those trials and tribulations and whatnot, and career changes and different changes in my career and all of that. Because again, I think everything that we've decided, right, whether right, wrong, whatever, has shaped us to where we're at. And I think, again, that brings more things to the table instead of saying I should have went to PA school. Because I had a chance to go into the armed service. Navy was so short medics, right, that I could have went in, and I forget ranks, but it was at least top sergeant or above. No basic training, no anything. Boom, we just want you in here, right? And again, you look at it that means you're going to be in the field hospitals or what. Now, you know where you're going. You know what I mean in that. And I didn't take that advantage, and I always kind of thought that would have been a great life experience, right? I could have went to nursing school because they were so short then after that. And they changed the whole program so that in about 9 to 11 months, you were an RN if you had a medic license. Mm-hmm. And again, better pay, better whatever. But again, I just didn't like the four-wall concept. Mm-hmm. I had a chance to go to PA, those kind of things. And I look back now and I go, well, if I should have, could have. But then I went, I would have never met anybody that I've ever met, right? And I even look at it, it's not justifying, but if I didn't go through a divorce and we didn't move here, we didn't do there, my kids would have never met who they met. It's that Vidal Sassoon thing again, right? So I
got to see that commercial.
You got to look it up. You're good at it. We'll do it on the way back.
We'll do
I'm
okay.
really
It might be on
happy to be
YouTube.
standing here
It's
with
on
you
Jimbo
guys,
will
so-
find a clip and
You'll find a
put
clip
it
and put it
We'll
in.
look on a TV.
And put it
There
in,
you go.
put it in here just as a group,
You should pay him for the ad.
It's copyrighted.
And that sounds
right.
kind of high and mighty here, and I don't. That's not what I mean.
But it is true to some
I've
regard.
learned, and I think it's just as you get older, we reflect differently.
See, now I'm
And all
thinking
that.
if
And
I would
again,
have
you're
went
only
to PA
21, so what do
school,
you know? And yeah,
I wouldn't have met you guys, and
Right.
that'd be
Yeah.
kind of
It's
sad. If you
100%.
ever
Missing all
tell
of
anybody
this.
I said that, I'm going to deny it, even on this podcast.
and I think you know that. And I think you know that. Not if you would have never enrolled, you would have never. I don't think if I were to look back in my life and made different changes, there, like you just said, I would have missed a ton of stuff, good or bad, but it shapes who I am right now.
And if anybody is in a good situation, which a lot of us are, you could really, I've thought about this a lot with doing these. This is like the 59th or 60th one of these. And if you're in even a halfway decent situation, you're really not going to say, if anybody asks you, well, if there's anything I would have changed, but it's chaos theory. If you did change, then it's exactly what you guys are talking about. So it's the other half of the population or whoever, if you're not in a good spot now, affect that type of change, that you won't regret that decision as well. It's kind of the way I think about it, or if I've been talking to somebody or we got cigars around the campfire, that's the kind of stuff we talk about.
That's very true, because I wouldn't want to lose anything I have.
Yeah,
No.
make the changes if you need some now.
Yeah, you can't change the past, but you can start where you are and change the future.
Yep. Once again, what's the way ahead?
Yep.
No blaming, no second guessing, no regrets.
Well, I wouldn't be here tonight if
Yeah.
I didn't decide to keep working, right?
Yeah.
And it was just a choice that may not have been a smart one.
You would have been so sad.
I would have.
You wouldn't have had us.
And again, this is the camaraderie that, again, our business has, that we do take you in, we all of that. And I wasn't even, well, I guess I was hired, but they invited me to their Christmas party. Now, I knew James, I knew the guy that's our boss, and Ryan, but I didn't really know anybody else. And I'm like, I don't want to come to your Christmas party. This is where you guys get
Yes,
to
you
hang
did.
out and just have fun, right? I'm getting crap for not coming, right?
Why aren't you here?
Yeah, my dad was also in the hospital at the time
Yeah.
with a head injury, so I did have a good excuse. But those are those things that you can't get back.
I don't know what I did to you that day, but you walked up to me and you said, I know I just met you, but I have a feeling I'm going to like you. I said,
Well,
Thank you for that.
that's what I strive for here.
I do hope I'm a pretty good judge of people, and I've seen, again, not that you guys don't see people either. It's just I've been doing this a long time, right? And you can tell when you see people that she will be a great medic. She will be good at this. I knew James was going to be a great medic because I lie when I do graduation speeches for the paramedic class, and I go, I never got to be valedictorian because this other guy I went to school with, and he beat me by 2%, or whatever. I don't even remember what our scores. And I asked
Because
him,
I donated blood.
yeah, because if you gave blood, then you got extra credit. But,
Oh, no.
And I don't like
How
needles,
much
but
blood did you lose?
oh, he gave a lot.
I thought I was like, no.
And then we were talking about it after I came back. He goes, I don't think I scored higher than you. I said, no, I know, but it sounded better in the speech.
Well, and don't you think that I've said this to other younger nurses too, because I've had a few younger nurses say, I just wish I could osmose everything that you know about nursing into my brain. And it's like, well, it doesn't work that way, but just know that every experience you have, no matter what, role you have and what job, it prepares you for the next one and the next one and the next one. So it does build, and we all have faith. And I think I can say we're not the ones in charge anyway,
No.
right? I mean, I feel like I've been very blessed and blessed with family and really good friends, and I'm very thankful for that.
Same.
Exactly. Yeah, and one thing where I can relate to what you're talking about is the shop. I was hired as a young supervisor, so I supervised that shop for 20 years. And one of the best things that I got to experience with that, and it was just kind of by accident, is you have young people coming in and you advise them on this and that and the other thing. And then we've got pages and pages of survival and equipment and fighter pilot stuff to learn, not that we took care of the pilots, everything that we needed to learn for that. And a lot of it became pretty overwhelming because in 2008 we merged with the parachute shop, so we had to know even twice as much. And there are some young people that were really struggling, or they thought they were struggling more than what they really were. But what I got to do with a couple of them is in 10, 12 years into it, there was a couple guys that had only been in there like 4 years, 1 4 and 1 6. And they were still talking about stuff that they didn't know or didn't feel comfortable with or whatever. And we sat down And because they were always talking about the older people in the shop. I wish I knew what that person was. I wish, all of this would just soak in. And I just started talking to them about, and I brought up specifics. Do you remember when we were talking about this and that, your first year, your second year? How do you feel right now, 6 years later, on what you know? And oh, by the way, what I've seen you training other people, that it's not registering to you how much you've gained, how much you've progressed through that. And those are two of my favorite talks as a supervisor, seeing those lights come on, and they're like, they walked out of there not puffing their chest, but the confidence and the purpose tripled. And that I guess would say probably two of my best days as a supervisor right there, seeing that in the young people. So
What a chat.
I've got a question for you guys.
Oh, boy. Every time you say that, I get more prepared.
Well, it's midnight in Montana right now, so we need to cut this short.
Montana, they're behind us.
That's what I mean. It's late.
No, I'm going with a lesser. I'm going more of kind of an ending question here, and it is, what is at the top of your bucket lists now at this point? Now it's going to be probably different for you than us,
Well, that's
because
a
we're
loaded
probably thinking about
question.
it a lot more. What's two or three things on each of your bucket list, or even just one, if that's all you can think of? If you can only think of one, you better keep working.
This is a question that stumps us. I don't mind working. And working with you guys never feels like I'm actually going to work. I don't know. It just doesn't. Like, I'm always happy to show up.
That's the passion, though.
That is the passion.
Yeah.
And normally I get to watch Randy make fun of James all day, and then James gets, it's just great. And then normally we make fun of Ryan, and that is also my favorite pastime.
Well, Randy maybe only has one because he did go back to work. But so what was one of those?
Again, thinking older now, right? They have different perspectives, I
Right.
think is what it is. So moving back here, I have one daughter still in California that will be moving at some point here. I have a stepdaughter that lives out there, one that lives here in town. One of my daughters lives in Brandon, one lives in Minneapolis. My two girls have kids and stuff now that I am back. Even though I'm working full time, I have a job where it can be family now.
Yep.
I've been blessed to do a job that I hope I'm good at, that we're making a difference, but I get to now be back here. I'm back. I came back because of my parents. I'm back with that. So that's a bucket list. I think, again, as you get older and retire, what else do I need? Does that make sense?
Yep, because it turns into what do you
What's
want?
important? What is
Yeah.
what is a priority now? Now, I did move back to South Dakota, which is a more gun-friendly state, so I am looking maybe a bucket list of getting a few more things.
There you go.
Oh, there
Just
you go.
because of that, and I told
Yeah.
James, I said, I don't know why, but we've got John Wayne all over in here, and I that is one of my favorite Western ones, and half a dozen movies, I think he goes, let's break out the greeners, right? So I want to get a greener.
It's called peer pressure.
I am gonna build a
Are
shooting
you two going to
spot.
say
Oh, yeah.
retirement? Now I'm really on the chopping block down here.
Yeah,
I gotta have
so
a better answer.
Well, I think the no-brainer would be retirement, but I can't see myself retiring completely. I am looking forward to cutting back on hours. My bucket list, I would like to travel more, and
We should ask Terry this question. What's on your
I'd
bucket
ask
list?
Terry.
Oh,
what's on her bucket list?
I've got some questions for him in a minute.
Oh, okay.
He's not even mic'd up, but I'll know.
Yeah, watching my grandkids grow up, that's huge on my bucket
It's
list.
huge.
Because when you were actually on the very first podcast, which we did 5 practice ones. She was on the number 1 practice one. She and a bunch
We
of
had
the ladies.
we had Bible
and stuff.
study in the house, and Jim comes in and he's like, "Can you ladies come out here?
What was the
Gotta show
topic?
you something."
We were just testing equipment.
Oh,
It was
just goofing off.
It was just
and-
everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
But during that, we talked about retirement a little bit, and she listed these things she had listed earlier. And then that all just was flushed because, well, my grandkids are here. There's
Yeah.
no moving
Yeah.
south anymore. There's no this, there's no that. You know, maybe snowbird a little bit or something, but grandkids
Yeah.
grandkids
Yeah,
were
I would say that I'm really similar. I don't, maybe retire, but I'm very content where I'm living. There's nothing that I can say, this is really what I want to or need to do. I joke with my wife about moving and living in Duluth, and she always tells me, well, you'll have a long commute then, so I'm not sure what she means by that. But yeah, no, I don't really have any specific goal outside of, and I also will probably keep in this to some form or fashion as long as I'm able.
Yep.
And especially in education, working, whether it's streets, flights, whatever, it does take a toll on you physically, a pretty big toll over years. And so kind of sliding into a more of an education role is way better for that. So.
my number one rule, and I created this other channel called Retirement Doesn't Suck. The very first, besides the intro, the first video was soft starts in the morning. That was a very popular one. I think people are agreeing with this, to where I say, I'm going to have something to do every day. Might be one thing, might be 6, might be 30 minutes, might be 12 hours worth of stuff. But I don't start that until after like 9:30. You get up, have your soft start, make your coffees,
Yeah.
read, whatever. So that's one thing. So
That would
if
be
you
a good
don't
bucket list
have
thing,
a lot
right.
of things. That could be your number. If you can't come up with one, I'll give you that one.
Right.
So, but yeah. So that's nobody's just going to sit around and do nothing. Sitting's the new smoking.
Yeah.
You know. So I don't expect any kind of any people that have been busy their whole career that anybody's just going to sit. So what
Well,
else you guys
Miranda,
got out there?
Oh,
She
yes?
can't sit, period, for 1 second of the day.
How many jobs do you have?
5, 4.
Four.
That's not being a mom either.
Does volunteering count in there? Kind
Yes.
of. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not paid. Then yeah, like 4. We're busy. I'm busy. I give to a lot of communities.
Described as a whirlwind, actually.
Yes, I might be a little bit of a whirlwind
Yes.
sometimes. I'm slowing down a little.
No.
Is there an eye to that storm where she will sit for a little
No,
bit?
there is
Like, I'm
not.
slowing
There
down. He's like,
is
no.
no eye to her storm.
No, I'm full steam ahead all the time. So maybe my bucket list should be slowed down.
Maybe
Should
that
be. Well,
actually.
your soft
Give yourself
start.
a
soft start.
Soft start.
Soft start in the morning.
Does a soft start mean no alarm clock? You have
No,
to-
that's not going to be for another
Only if
9
we're
years.
catching a flight or
Because-
something.
Okay.
But, yeah, that video has 24,000 views, so
Wow.
it means something. People
that
know
is
what
good.
we're getting at. You
So
know,
now
with
we
the
have a
soft
goal
start.
to beat.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll have to share the heck out of this one.
And the deal I was teasing Terry about a little bit, he and I have been talking. We go to church together, and we've been talking for a few years about retirement. I retired 5.5 years ago, and the pros, the cons. Can you slide into something? Do you have hobbies now? If not, can you develop hobbies? After you retire, is there a hurry for that? Not necessarily, but Karen was wondering about with basically that you're so busy right now with work and that you haven't dove into any hobbies or anything. So I gave her a solution. I said, just send him over to the hog house when he retires and we'll find some stuff to do. So that's what we're going to do.
Retire
put you
at
to
the
work.
hog house.
There you go.
Easy work.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, you're not going to win.
You're in a lose-lose situation.
Because I know what's going to happen. I'm going to show up and there's going to be John Wayne. You're going to be on your third John Wayne movie.
We're watching Dances with Wolves on Sunday because I have a
Oh,
friend
yeah.
in Canton has never seen it.
No kidding?
We just scheduled it.
No.
Yeah, 1:30
neither.
on Sunday. You guys come out and
Really?
watch
Yep,
Dances with
never
Wolves.
seen it.
Great.
I could put that on my bucket list, and one
haven't seen
day I
that
could
either.
put retirement. Not anytime soon.
And to watch one John Wayne movie.
One John Wayne movie.
The Cowboys.
The Cowboys. Not one John Wayne movie.
Which is what? There's 2 that he dies in the end.
Well, the
Cowboys
So
and,
actually 3.
Okay, well, I'm
Those
not
guys
watching
and the
that one.
Cowboys.
and who the
Cowboys.
shootist.
and
The
the shootist.
Shootist.
And I
thought there was
think
another
there's one or two more sleepers.
Like his
that
early
he's
ones.
died in. There might be 4, but the 2 that we mentioned are the most common.
Okay, well, I'll put those on my bucket
But
list.
the Cowboys is cool
I'll watch the
because
Cowboys.
he has to hire kids to do this cattle drive up to Belfouche.
I can do that. I can do that.
Oh, what time is it? Well,
It's 10.
Oh boy.
I don't have anything to do tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, well, maybe now I can. She might be
I,
Well, tomorrow's Saturday.
James can't get in the house, so we might as well stay.
I'm trying to think. I think if I'm being like actually serious about my bucket list, I think I would want to continue my family's faith, continue down that road, instill it in our son. He loves church, keep that going. Both of us continue our education, keep bettering ourselves, keep being good advocates for the workforces we're in, get stability so that we can hopefully retire. I think that would be like our next things on our bucket list is just faith, stability, and continuing life in healthy ways and treating people the best we can.
Perfect. Life's about relationships. We talked about
is.
that without mentioning it. Really.
And to get a greener.
Oh, there's that.
If I could get green grass this year, I'd also be happy.
That's
All
I'll
right.
set up some targets. You come shoot at my house.
Well, I want to thank you guys for doing this
Thank you
tonight,
for
and
having
thank you
us.
for the
Yeah.
the meal. That I'm telling you, that is the best pulled pork I've ever had. I had a plate full at the break. Again, I don't know if you guys saw that.
If you comment, she might give us all the recipe.
And it's a part of it's
no,
smoking too.
No,
so
wait.
there's
You
some
never
work
want
to
the
that.
recipe because then she has to make it.
Yeah.
Right.
Hence the cheesecake.
Oh,
Yeah, we're still waiting for that, by the way.
I could just give James the recipe.
No.
It won't be the same.
All right, you bet. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I greatly
Thank you.
appreciate it, and
Thanks,
we'll
Jim.
see. We might
Anytime.
even get another group going in here. That remains to be
Oh,
seen.
You haven't
We
even
have
got all of us together yet.
we
It
have-
could get worse or
We have
better.
some coworkers that.
We may have to
Need to be
expand the
here.
bar here a little
Yeah.
bit,
Yeah,
but
it might have to be double-sided.
We could. Well,
now you got him
I'll
thinking
figure out the camera angles somehow. We go down this way.
down
Yeah.
that way.
Right.
So,
All right.
but all right, you bet. Well, thanks
Thank
a lot,
you, sir.
everybody, and drive careful. And thanks for watching.
All right.
It's a wrap.
And cut. So you got to wait for that part.
How long was that?
This says 2 hours and 40 minutes
With James potty
With the-
break in the middle.
With the break?
with the cuts, probably a couple hours.
With the honorary mention?
And we'll help James now, and we'll de-mic him.
I'm gonna turn up as well.